This podcast is part of the Midwest Podcast Network. Find out more about our other shows and how to support our network at MidwestPodcastNetwork.com. Welcome to Gone to Texas, a podcast about AMC's Preacher. My name is Alex, and I have not read any of Ennis Dillon's Preacher.
My name is Nick, and I have read all of Ennis and Dillon's Preacher.
Joining us this week, our special guest. You may know him from previous Gone to Texas episodes, our buddy Lance. Lance, how you doing?
Good, how are you?
I'm doing well.
My neighbor Lance. Yeah. He's not really my neighbor, but just sounds like a good Totoro parody.
Right.
You've also read all of Ennis and Dillon's Preacher.
Yes, I have.
As we know from previous appearances. But yeah, I'm glad we finally got you on.
Yeah, I'm like the Eugene of this podcast.
Just shows up.
Yeah. Just late in the season, and then just for a little bit. Yeah.
That's good.
Yeah, we are more invested in your storyline than Eugene's, I think.
That's true.
Okay.
Yes.
Although it seems like they're putting him onto a good path by the end of this season.
Yeah.
I think we're going to...
They righted the course, I think.
We're going to start to see comic book, I think, like full comic Arseface soon.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
And I just reread some of those issues recently, and I'm excited. How many times have you read Preacher?
Preacher.
Refresh my memory.
Once all the way through, and then like the last arc once again.
Okay.
Yeah.
I feel like your retention of it is much better than mine, because I've read it through probably 3 times, but I speed read and I also binge, and so I start to forget. Like I just reread the whole Masada arc and a little bit of Angelville and then a little bit of the stuff beyond, like maybe a week ago, and I've already kind of like forgotten some of the like finer points.
Yeah.
But
Wikipedia, I tell you,
Wikipedia is awesome, and I tend to take screenshots on my iPad of like really like important panels and really like parts where like the dialogue really impressed me, or like where some particular bit of art or writing. My iPad has more screenshots of Preacher than anything else, like in the photos category.
Yeah.
But it's it's funny like that. I think like because you and I would talk and you would like call out some really specific detail. I'm like, man, how does he remember that? That's really good.
Yeah.
Then I have
the
to go
stuff
back
that sticks out is always
I'm really glad though I reread the Masada stuff just before recording this episode because I wanted to kind of align my expectations for season 4. Now that I know what they tend to take from the books and what they don't, I kind of like reading it and trying. It's kind of like a weird like betting game almost. Try to figure out like what they are going to work into it. Yeah. But they dropped like it at the end of season 1 and at the end of season 2. They dropped certain things that we thought we would see from the books, like leading up to Angelville. There was we knew that we'd have Jody and TC and Grandma, and they dropped a lot of stuff at the end of season 3, though. I think like leading up to Masada, like they clued in, they threw a whole bunch of stuff out there right in the last few minutes, and I was like, oh my god,
yeah.
So I'm really excited.
A lot of what is it? Breadcrumbs, teasers,
yes,
whatever you want to call
definitely.
it. Definitely, yeah. That they for comic fans, and just to keep interest.
Yeah, I think they had to reveal certain things to kind of make also non-readers go like, oh wow, what's that about?
What they got to be curious about it.
Yep.
Yeah.
I think they did a good job kind of baiting the both the readers and the non-readers. So it's exciting.
Well, today, if you have not guessed, we will be discussing the entirety of Season 3 of the AMC series. While we will not be spoiling any of the comic and by extension any future plotlines of the show, we will be discussing the details of the series through Season 3, Episode 10, so pause this and go catch up before you listen to the rest of the episode. You can find more episodes of our podcast at g2tpodcast.com. We're also G2T Podcast on Twitter, and you can send feedback to g2tpodcast at gmail.com. That's the letter G, number 2, letter T, podcast. Podcast. If you enjoy this show or any other show on the Midwest Podcast Network, please consider heading over to patreon.com/MidwestPodnet. That's MidwestPodnet. And pledge as little as $1 a month to make our network even better. Special thanks to Jason K. and Gojo, who have pledged at the level of $10+ per month. Thank you very much, guys.
Got those Gojo bucks.
Yes. Nick and I are getting over colds. Lance will be getting over one in a couple days, I'm sure.
Yes, after today.
So pardon all of the adolescent voice cracks that you get out of me and the coughs and the snorts and whatever makes it through onto the podcast. But, yeah.
It's that beautiful time of year in Michigan where the seasons are transitioning and
kids are back to school. The germs are everywhere.
Yeah, it's true.
Yeah. So, yeah. So I kind of have a bunch of feedback stuff that we can talk about, and that'll kind of lead us into discussion about season 3 and where it's been and what our listeners thought of the season. And then also I might hit up some more general questions later on, and we can talk a little bit about what you guys might be excited for in season 4 and what might be coming. But yeah, so I did want to mention real quick, we did get a nice tweet from our friend David Steele. He tweeted at us just this morning, and he said, "My name is David, and I'm about to read all of Ennis and Dylan's Preacher." And he has a picture of 9 trades of Preacher that he sent to us.
That is so impressive.
Congratulations.
God, look at those covers.
Yeah.
The Preacher covers are always so fun to look at. Like if I had been a little bit older when Preacher was actually out, like coming out monthly, I'm sure I would have bought it because I was a sucker for like cool. When I was young, I was like a good cover would like totally snare me, and I would be like, yeah, whatever. Like I still have, I mean, books I've read, but I have like random issues that I wanted to buy because like the covers are so cool, and like I wanted to like keep those like floppies that I just thought were really impressive. Like when I was a kid, I had like an entire short box of comics that all had Nightcrawler on the cover. Didn't matter what series it was. Didn't matter if I had read anything. Like I was such a Nightcrawler fan from the X-Men when I was a kid that I was like, I just have to buy it and read it. And that was the beauty of like a good issue of a book. Like if you hadn't read the previous issues and you could still like get something cool out of the story, it was totally worth it. And I feel like they used to be that way a little bit more because now they have so many tie-ins and so many events and all the, especially the big two in DC and Marvel. And Marvel's by and far the most guilty of this. That you could pick up an issue, and you used to see like a little box, like a character would reference something, and you'd see a little box that would say like
Astonishing X-Men
as seen in like Avengers and little editor's notes, and those were kind of fun because you'd be like, oh, that's cool, but the writing was good enough you could pick up using contextual clues like what it meant. But now it's like they can't even have those little boxes because it would take up an entire panel. Like you would just have too much.
It's just a glossary at the back of the
exactly. Yeah. But anyway, it was funny because a cover with Nightcrawler, I was like, I'm not buying it.
Comic book covers have always been weird to me. Like I didn't realize until within the past decade or so, because I didn't read a lot of comics growing up. I didn't realize that the cover artist was usually different from the series artist.
Yeah. Usually, yeah.
And a lot of the times you see these covers that have this like weird representation of maybe what you might think could happen in the issue or like what should follow from the issue that you previously read, but it's not necessarily indicative of what's actually in the issue.
I'm thinking of one particular Preacher cover that's just like that.
Yeah. So it's kind of like this weird like tease to get you to buy in, but then like they don't necessarily deliver on it 100% of the time. Yeah. So it's very strange, but I liked in season 1 when they had was Steve Dillon or was it Glenn? No, Glenn Fabry, I think, right?
They had an artist do
like Preacher covers for every episode of season 1, so that was really cool. I missed that. I don't think they're doing that with season 3.
Not so much.
But so David Steele, we're glad that you can join the smug comic book reader side of things for the Gone to Texas podcast. And feel free to write in and let us know what you think. Nick can chime in and let you know.
I really wonder how quickly he'll read it all.
Yeah, I don't know. So let us know how your journey goes. So we did have a bunch of different comments on Discord. Our buddy Joseph wrote in. Most of these are in response to our last recap episode. But Joseph said, to Nick's point about Jodie and the Saint, I am personally glad that the show has humanized them a little bit, and I think it makes them more interesting characters. Nick is fired up about the comic versions, which sound more like forces of nature, but I'm not sure that would play well on TV. And I definitely saw Jodie as sociopathic and evil. In the same episode where he was sending emojis, he murdered 2 guys with a hammer and sat in their blood doing puzzles.
That's true.
It's a good point, and it's good to see, because Joseph is not a comic book reader.
Okay.
So to have his input as someone who is not hosting a podcast about the show, but also has not read the comics, I think good to know that. I think the broad strokes of Jodie probably got through to the audience.
Yeah, I would agree.
Yes.
But yeah, so I skipped over a little bit. Lance,
yes,
what did you think about season 3? Like, what are your general thoughts about how the season went?
I liked it a lot of high points, and they did stuff which I enjoyed that was very comic book-esque, like to keep it like what I didn't like about season 2, I think, was that they tried to ground it in reality a lot more than season 3. And there's one moment in season 3 that I was like, I love that they did this. Even though it's kind of goofy, I love that they did it. So, like, remember when Jesse chopped up Cassidy and put him in a mailbox?
Yeah.
I was like, thank you for doing that, because, like, it needs to be wacky, zany kind of stuff going on. Like, don't give me reality. Don't Batman Begins this kind of thing. Okay, like,
hey,
keep it weird. Keep it so strange and odd, because there's a guy, he's looking for God. Like, he's not. I mean, like, yes, he is actually looking for God, but at the same time, it's like, it's such a, unique and crazy story that I think you should keep that level of insaneness.
The pilot started with people exploding from an alien body flying into them.
There you go.
Like,
right. Keep that going. Like, keep that thread. Don't let it go down. And, like, there's a season 2 part that I really just didn't like. Was remember when he was trying to find the serial numbers on the gun?
Yeah.
And, like, the guys behind the counter were, like, totally with him. They're like, yeah, we'll help you find it. Like, and, like, not kind of acknowledging how weird all this is.
Yeah.
Like, and then remember when he screamed, like, I'm looking for God. Have you seen him? Like, to a person not on Jesse's journey, that should sound weird, but it didn't to those guys.
Yeah.
So I'm glad that in season 3 they kind of upped everything. If I had to just summarize what I feel about the season, they upped everything.
Yeah.
Upped the intensity. They upped the action. There was quite a bit of action. They upped a lot of the characters and things that they would do. Like I loved also the one part where, like the hell bus and, like, all the crazy stuff that was going. That whole sequence, I really liked it. Just how goofy and weird and yeah.
Yeah, we were a little disappointed that it wasn't a little more. They kind of abstracted a lot of the stuff with the hell bus, at least in the end there, just to kind of shoot around. I think some of the action and whatnot for a show that did so well with a lot of the action in seasons 1 and 2 and parts of 3 as well.
Good action in season 2 for sure.
It just kind of sucked that towards the end there, when things were getting really wacky and crazy, they kind of shied away from it a little bit. Yeah. Probably from, like, a budget standpoint. But.
Sure, yeah. I need you guys, though. I need the Gone to Texas podcast, because every time I think that something's cool, I listen to you guys about to say it, and I'm just like, oh, let me take it back a little bit, like, because, like I told Nick this, like, how, like, I automatically think that, like, just because it's weird and different, I'm like, oh, I loved it, But if I really thought about it, then, like, and I kind of compared it to the books, or if I kind of thought about what it represented, then, and what you guys think about, it brings it back into perspective for me.
Well, so we make you like the thing you thought was cool less.
Probably because, like, I don't know. I think
why is that good?
I don't know. No, because, like, I need to be, like, you have to be not so satisfied with everything. I think like for me, I think maybe just because I watched the show and I liked it, I feel satisfied. But I have to be a better critic than that. I have to be more discerning than that.
Well, and that's the thing is that I feel as though having context to it, like, you can still feel satisfied with that sequence, but to kind of have the context of, like, oh, it didn't work for some people because it wasn't quite there. But it still worked for you. That's not a bad thing. Me, it just kind of allows you to.
That's interesting.
Inform your own. It can make you realize, oh, it worked for me in spite of the fact that the action wasn't blatantly on the screen.
Yeah.
And so you can kind of tune into what worked for you better. I think.
Sure. Yeah. I always try to find the good stuff in whatever media I watch. And if you look at my Letterboxd account, I don't rate anything like less than 3 stars, and I don't know why. And so, like, 3 stars is liked it, 4 stars is really liked it, and then, like, 5 stars is really is loved it.
5-star scale.
So, like, I'm always on the 3-star thing, even though it wasn't a good movie. I'm just like, I liked it. There was parts of it I liked, but, like, I think it's better if you don't, like, put everything on one side of the spectrum. You have a more wider range. I'll give you another example of when I listen to you guys, where the because I'm a fan. The one episode where the opener where the this is a wrap up, so everybody's watched.
Yeah, no,
Okay.
spoilers for the season.
Yeah, when the Allfather got killed, that whole opener, because it was so fast and it was so quick, and like the fight was so goofy.
Oh, it was very like Guy Ritchie.
Yeah, it was.
And blitzed through it.
Yeah, and it was so quick, and then like the Allfather exploded, and I was just like, my mouth was open at the end, and I was like, oh, it was cool, But then I watched you guys. I listened to you guys when you watched it, and you're like, oh, the effects were kind of cheesy. That was you, Alex, and then like Nick was like, yeah, and then like, why would he do that? And then I was just like, yeah, why would he do that? So like, so that's so being critical. I thank you guys for that. So.
And thank you. That's very nice of you to say. And it's not it is never our mission to make somebody like anything less, but I think hearing different people's perspectives on things is always good and helps you figure out your own.
Sure.
Yeah, definitely.
Maybe just looking at it, simplifying it to say I like it less, maybe not, but like just like looking at it from a different perspective, another angle, and like, budgetary reasons could have been that, or just like trying to wrap things up really quick could have been the reason why they did that, and that's why I like you guys question that. So
thank you.
I still think that I could have forgiven a lot of stuff regarding the Allfather and like how they chose to expedite certain things, that if he had just been a little more like his comic counterpart. But now that I know, and this is jumping ahead, but now that I know that they're kind of going full Masada in some ways, I really am like, why
did you do that?
Yeah. Or at least, I mean, he could have totally been in this season. That would have been fine. I was excited when I saw him in all the promo stuff.
How would you feel if there was an Allfather clone that is in Masada?
I would not like that, because then we're going too far with we can clone.
You just making stuff up.
The cloning thing.
Plus, I don't think he would clone himself. I think that's one thing that's cool about the Allfather is like he is a genuine believer. Like he's crazy and he's incredibly wicked and intelligent, but he's a believer. Like he believes in that. Like that's his mission. And I don't think he would be like, no, it would be sacrilege to clone myself, but it's okay to clone the descendant of Jesus, apparently.
in order to find a way to have him accept, or have Genesis accept him.
Correct, yeah. I guess they only cloned them to trial run that, because ultimately the original one was going to be the one that received the infinity formula. Yeah, tap dancing Jesus. Which, by the way, I did not put together.
No, I didn't.
I saw
either.
something on Reddit about that, and I was like, well, aren't I an idiot? Because somebody pointed out that he was a lot of people will say like holy tap dancing Jesus as like a phrase.
Or Jesus tap dancing Christ.
Jesus, that's it. Yeah, I'm sorry. Jesus tap dancing Christ. And then that is the one skill that Humperdoo has, is tap dancing. And I was like, wow.
Good.
All I could think of was from Young
We're all wearing our
Frankenstein.
dunce caps right now.
Do you remember in Young Frankenstein when they had him tap dance?
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, that's what I thought about.
Yeah,
but there's a phrase, hey?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, Jesus tap dancing Christ is Jesus H Christ is the one I always hear, and I always like think that that's hilarious, because I don't know where that came from or what the H is supposed to signify, but it's really funny.
No, I don't know. On our Discord, Joseph also went on to say, one nice touch during the Jesse Jody fight, I wondered why TC was using the numberer, and then it turned out it was because he didn't expect to leave the tombs alive. In general, the numberer is like that. Hilarious at first, but the more you think about TC inventing something so he can stop feeling things, the more sad it is. Mm-hmm. And I told him, I was like, well, he also did shoot his foot off with a shotgun.
Yeah.
But I like Joseph's explanation.
Yeah, that's
more.
a good read.
It's sadder, but also, I don't know, it's just interesting.
Yeah, you got to think about his whole life. It just, and remember when he did that role playing with Grandma?
Yep.
He's just numb to everything.
Yeah, well, he knew Grandma was gonna die.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah.
Poor TC. And it's cool that even through all the numberer, he still like had this moment of like clarity where he was like, "There's nothing out there for me.
Yeah, yeah.
I'm good here going up in a.
It's still got through. Speaking of TC, Bruce said, "I felt bad for TC. That shouldn't be, but the show is just that good." Mm-hmm. So that's pretty good. He also liked Cassidy's Nixon campaign shirt that he was wearing.
That was awesome. Yeah,
that's very
forgot
good.
to mention that.
But he said, I agree. This is something that Nick brought up. I think he said, I agree that the season needed a few more flashbacks, especially with Jody. It needed to do the flashback to John Custer's death a hell of a lot sooner as well. And another thing is that the fuck communism lighter doesn't resonate anywhere near as well as it should, as we know, as nothing we know about John Custer really gives that lighter any meaning.
Mm-hmm.
What they did with him in season 1 works fine with that season in a vacuum, but it didn't quite mesh with the stuff that they did here. So, do you guys agree? I mean, Lance, what are your thoughts on? Did you like seeing the lighter?
Yeah, I did, but it's only for comic book people.
Yeah,
yeah.
It's like it's fan service at this point,
which is such a bummer. Like he's right. It should mean so much more.
Well, and the fact that they went far enough to include John Wayne in this season,
they did.
Like you would think they would start to tie those pieces together a little bit or something, but I don't know. Maybe the guy that played John wasn't available this season or something like that.
Because he's gone. I hope.
We'll see.
You know what's can I say for one thing?
Yeah.
You know what's strange? Have you read Why the Last Man? You
Yes.
have Why the Last Man, don't you?
I haven't. I've read through, I think, the first trade, but...
Yeah. They have the fuck communism lighter in that book, too. And actually, it feels right in that book. It's a thing that appears, and it's like a nod to the Preacher comics, but like, I don't know, he uses the lighter in some situations. I don't know. But yeah, it really has no place in the other than a thing that I think Jody said. He's like, I'm glad I got this back, or something like that. Didn't Jody say something?
Jody at the end was like, I'm glad, or I was looking for this. That's when we get the flashback to John, to John getting shot. But I remember what happened, and this is a little inside baseball for podcast listeners, is that in the episode where we first see that lighter and Jesse notices it, I asked Nick, I was like, does that lighter mean something? And Nick was like, yes. And I ended up cutting that section out of the podcast because I didn't want to I noted that Jesse looked at it funny, but I cut out the rest of it. But it was like, from the filmmaking, I can tell this should mean something.
Right, the way they did it, yeah.
But taking the show in on the whole, they didn't do enough to make it matter to people who didn't read the comics, which is sad.
Yep. And they still haven't, and it's still sad.
Yeah.
Because that was one issue. I mean, when I finished reading the Angelville stuff, it's a big deal when Jesse gets that lighter back. And by that point in the series, I think they already explained that it belonged to his dad.
Yeah.
That Jody's like, I took it off your dad the day he died. But like later, I mean, the more, I guess it is a little later in the book that they kind of get into a little more about John Custer and what that lighter means, both what it meant to John Custer. Because John's an awesome character on his own. Like, he's not in the book that much, but he's just that well done that he takes on a lot of meaning, especially through the context of another character who is related to John Custer, not like by blood.
There's
there was another character from John Custer's past who comes into the book, and through that story you get to learn a lot more about John Custer, and then in turn you learn more about Jesse also. And I feel like the show has already sort of missed the boat in terms of being able to do that. I guess not 100%, but they're gonna have to do some serious course correction, and I think that the first step, it would be recasting John Custer and kind of retooling their approach to him. And at this point, I feel like they already did what they did, and I don't know why. I don't know if they're like, we don't care about doing the John Custer stuff, but that really bums me out because it's some of the, I mean, they're all kind of, they call it a bottle episode, right? Of like a TV show where it kind of stands on its own.
Yeah.
Isn't that what that's called?
Yep.
They're kind of like that. Would you agree? Those issues about John, like they do have broader implications across Jesse's character in particular, but not so much the story. But the issues that kind of revolve around John Custer are kind of like bottle episodes, if you will. But they are so good. Yeah. They're some of my favorite issues, and some of my favorite issues across Preacher are those ones that are kind of in between the big adventures. They're some of the best ones because the characters really like deepen.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about. Yeah.
That's been one thing so far about the series. I have enjoyed how they've been kind of tackling these big arcs. Like you got Kin Cannon in season 1.
Yeah.
You've got, I don't know what you had in season 2. And you have Grail a little bit and a little bit of Saint. And I guess you had some of the vampire stuff. But season 3, you had kind of more of the Grail. You had Angelville being the dominant one, and you still had a little bit of Les Incompetents. And but we're still not getting any of those in between episodes, which is kind of a shame. I would almost really prefer if they moved to a model of like if they were going to go back to like 13 episodes, I would almost be, as much as I loved the 10 episodes, I'd be down for it if it was like 6 episodes of this, like a middle episode, and then 6 more of something else.
Yeah.
And this will kind of tie into when you get to Mark's email, because he kind of mentions a few things that I think would lend itself to that kind of structure. But honestly, if they did a whole season of Preacher that was just like those kind of bottle episodes, I would shit.
Yeah.
It'd be so sweet.
Yeah.
Well, we can talk about Mark's email right now if we would like.
Yeah.
Shall we go for it?
Sure.
Okay. Mark, our friend Mark wrote in.
Our friend Mark.
Yes.
My neighbor Mark.
He's followed us through a few different. I think he listened to all 3 of our TV podcasts this year: The Alienists, Westworld, and Preacher.
I still can't believe The Alienist is coming back. I would have never thought that.
You know, somebody said it's critically acclaimed, and I was like, by who? And I was like,
which critics?
Yeah.
Well, that was the thing. Is I think it did get Emmy nominations or something like that.
Yeah.
And it was a weird ploy of like, we're going to say it's a limited series so we can bill that for the Emmys. And then they were like, oh, hey, guess what? Season 2. Like this kind of weird
surprise
sequel limited series so they could like pivot the.
It's exciting.
Yeah.
For sure. But that means I have to read that again. And it's a big book.
Well, you should have some time at this point. I think,
and it's actually exciting because I know Katrine picked it up and was reading it while we were talking about season 1, and so we'll be able to kind of chat about that, which would be awesome.
Yeah. But Mark's email, he said, "Hi, Alex and Nick." He didn't know you would be joining us.
No problem.
So I apologize.
It's okay.
I wanted to email in and give my thoughts on season 3 of Preacher.
Give my sauce. Some hot sauce.
Overall, along with some general comparisons of the show to the books. I've avoided any plot spoilers for the books, although I mentioned a few characters from the books that have not made an appearance on the show. First off, you guys did another great job recapping and discussing the show. For the first season of Preacher, I listened to the official podcast that was put out by the people associated with the show, but when that was not continued for season 2, I searched around and found your podcast. In retrospect, I'm glad that the other podcast was discontinued. That's very nice, Mark.
Yeah, thank you, Mark.
I'm sad that it didn't continue because I really enjoy the Better Call Saul and Breaking Bad one. But
I missed the Preacher Insider podcast.
That's the one that he's speaking
of.
of.
Is he? Okay,
Yeah.
Okay. I thought he meant like a fan.
No.
Okay.
Yeah, he's speaking of the Preacher Insider.
I liked it a
podcast.
lot, yeah.
So I'm bummed that they ended it, but I'm glad that it allowed you to find us, so that's good.
Mm-hmm. Obviously.
Mark goes on to say, I thought Preacher Season 3 was very good, certainly the best of the series so far. I don't think that there was much of anything that made me unhappy. The Hitler stuff didn't bother me anywhere as much as it did you guys, but I understand your problems with it. The amount of time that was spent on the storyline in Season 2 really slowed the show down, the whole show down, in my opinion. In contrast, the relatively short amount of time that was spent on it in Season 3 worked a lot better for me. And that said, if the show comes back for a Season 4, I won't shed any tears if they choose to let that storyline disappear. I think we all mostly agree with that.
Yeah.
Lance, did you have any like broad strokes on Hell and that stuff? Did it work for you? Did it not work? I mean, we talked about the bus, but
yeah, I liked Satan. I thought Satan was cool, and especially the last confrontation with Satan was cool.
Yeah,
where it was very comic book-esque. Not that it was just not. I'm not looking to say like it's good because it matched the comics.
Yeah.
I'm just saying it's good because it was good.
Yeah.
So like when I saw Satan be like, who do you think you're talking to, kind of thing, that was good for me. And Satan
that was
just
cool.
kind of
yeah. I liked that.
Yeah, Satan was cool. Sydney, that's her name, right? Sydney.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The Angel of Death.
Yeah, she was cool. She was she was a little bit dominatrix like.
Yep.
A little bit going on there. Yeah, and then like the Hell's office, Satan's office was all right.
That's hilarious.
Properly gaudy and
it was so
corny
tacky.
and
Yeah,
fake.
Yeah. I'm glad it wasn't like.
Just like our corporate office.
Yeah, right. With the Zagnut vending machine. I'm glad that okay, stop joking around here, okay? This is hell, all right?
Yeah.
So yeah. I was satisfied with the hell stuff. I thought it was good.
Okay, good. That's good. And then Mark also goes on to say, as for the 3 main characters, I was okay with their stories throughout the season. I was worried that when Cassidy left Tulip and Jesse that they'd go in a direction where he wallowed in self-pity for several episodes and spent his days in a drug-induced fog. But the quick introduction of Icarius and Les Enfants du Sang moved his story in a good and often very funny direction. I would have liked to have seen more of Jesse and Tulip working together, as Dominic Cooper and Ruth Negga have excellent chemistry with each other. And then in parentheses he says, "Come on, you two, please reconcile in real life and get back together."
Guys, just sit down.
And then he says, "I hope that next season keeps them as a pair rather than breaking them off into separate storylines. With this in mind, I hope that the Masada arc in the show doesn't match exactly with the one in the book, and I'll leave it at that to avoid any spoilers."
Agreed.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, agreed.
Yeah. He says, "I've been reading the book since about the middle of this season, and I've finished roughly 36 issues. It took me a while to mentally shift gears and to not keep thinking of the TV version while reading them. It's still hard to not keep comparing the two, and since I came into the books after watching the show, I have the opposite problem of those who have read the books. Dominic Cooper, Ruth Negga, and Joe Gilgun are always going to come to mind first for these characters rather than their counterparts in the books. I definitely prefer Ruth Nega's version of Tulip compared to book Tulip, and I think Nick is right in describing Joe Gilgun's Cassidy as being a better person in general than the book version, which makes me prefer TV Cassidy. And as for Jesse, I like both versions about the same, although there are definite differences between the two. Regarding some of the other characters, as good as Hairstar is in the book, Pip Torn's portrayal of him on the show is exceptional. He was truly born to play this character."
Yeah, it's so funny to think that someone would be born to play a character on a Preacher, but it's true. Like he's incredible.
Yeah, and I mean the little bits of Hairstar that I've seen from panels that you've shown me, and just like the art on the internet and things like that. I'm like, God, they could not get a more perfect resemblance of Hairstar.
It is. It's unbelievable.
So. And then he's got a little bit more here. He says, "As for the specific storylines, the Angelville story portrayed in the books had more impact for me than the TV version overall, both emotionally and visually. But I think that may be due to the book being a better format to portray the supernatural aspects of Angelville and the associated characters. Case in point was the way that Madame Langelle met her end. Without a bigger budget, I don't think the show could have ever effectively pulled off the exact way in which she was killed in the book." Do you guys agree with that?
Yeah, but I somewhat
sort of.
You know, the way he did it I kind of have issues with the way he did it in the show. But in the book, yeah, I mean, there's
partially because the soul machine is still so like undefined.
Mm-hmm.
And that's okay. It's okay to have things like that, especially in like a comic show, that like things that don't necessarily have explanations to how they function, but yeah, I don't know. It was all right. I guess the sort of symmetry of killing Grandma with that after she had subjected so many people to
giving her a taste of her own medicine.
Yeah, exactly. Mm-hmm. I get it, but her death in the book is really great.
Yeah,
it's just it's big and spectacular and explosive, kind of literally.
I was about to say that for sure, and why they couldn't do it in the show. But
I think you could. I think they could have.
With the way that he describes he likes the Angelville arc a lot better in the book than the show, because like by the time you get to the end of the Angelville arc in the book, it's like everybody deserved what they got.
Yeah,
you know, and in the TV show it's a little more complicated. So, but you just have this really good feeling at the end of that arc because like everything's just going how it should. Like yes, he did that. Yes, that happened. Yeah, he got that coming to him. That's what happens in the book.
Interesting.
Yeah.
The book also has a lot of backstory in it, but it's all really compelling.
Yeah.
Like I've talked about this before too. There's an entire issue that's pretty much flashback of Jesse like narrating to Tulip flashbacks, but it's so compelling that you're not like, oh, this is lazy. Like you're really into it because you've been really interested in this whole mystery too. Like, who are these people? And especially the way they show up, like the way Jodie explodes kind of on screen, so to speak, even in the comic, is like, it's ridiculous. And it's so sweet and it's so simple and totally doable. And as soon as you meet him, you're just like, oh, wow, who is this guy?
Yeah.
And the best part is, I think the Angelville arc, I think that story starts in issue like 7, maybe. I'm still a little unclear. It's like issue 7 or 8. And by that point, Jesse is already like well established to you as like one of the most badass characters. But when his reaction, when he sees Jody and he tells Tulip, he's like, shut up. Don't say anything to him. Don't look him in the eye. Don't do anything because this is the most dangerous person I know. You're like,
oh shit.
Oh, exactly. Yeah, yeah. And you get a little bit of that in the show. It's not like you don't see him as a force to be reckoned with, but I'm kind of going to disagree a little bit with, I think it was Bruce who said that, or no, Joseph, who was like, he didn't think the force of nature thing would work as well on TV. I think it absolutely would. And it's okay that I'm really fine and happy with where Jody wound up. Like, he's a great character because I did reread the Angelville arc, and his final fight with Jesse is actually hilariously spot on in the show. The gala or the tombs doesn't exist in the book, but like the wood panel with nails in his face and the way he's like, that's different exactly from the book. And I had forgotten that detail. And even the way he says, proud of you, boy, and then he dies, exactly the same. And I forgot that detail too. And Lance nods like, yeah, dummy, you didn't know that?
No, that's my favorite line.
Yeah, it's great.
Yeah.
And so all that's done really well. Like, the final confrontation is good. But Jesse hates Jody so much more in the book than in the show. Like, he hates him in the show, but he's never like, you never really like see it like simmering behind his eyes like in the show the way you do in the book, where he's like, I'm going to kill this guy and I'm going to just wipe him off the earth and it's going to be so satisfying. And Jesse's not like necessarily super into like murder in the book, but like Jody, he wants to murder with his own bare hands. And like, you get why by the end of the Angelville arc, like Lance said, he's got that shit coming to him. But it's good. The only character that I think needs to turn into more of a force of nature for sure is the Saint. Like, the Saint of Killers needs to be like, you need to hear his...
Get a little glimpse.
You need to hear his spurs coming and be like, oh, and like sit forward on the couch and be like, tell everyone around you to shut up because it's going down.
Yeah.
And he's still not quite there. Like, he's kind of been there. He's closer now that he shot Satan in the face.
Yeah. Yes.
That's all. That's a good start.
I think all the pieces for that are there. And
Absolutely.
I like the kind of... I like now that I feel like he has a moral compass. At least with like getting Eugene out of hell. I really like that aspect of him, but I did miss in season 1 and 2 feeling like when the Saint showed up that shit was about to be fucked. Like
when the Saint goes marching in.
Yeah, exactly. Like him without his weapons was okay, but I'm excited to see him just tear shit up again. Which is
so Masada era Saint is probably the best, if not some of the best, because this is where this is the point in the book where he starts to turn into a little bit more of a character finally and less of a force of nature. And I know this is running completely contrary to what I just said, but it works because it's very minimal. But it's the first time that he and Jesse have like an actual conversation.
Yeah.
And when those two meet, it is so awesome when they're face to face and just looking at each other, and they have this kind of powwow very briefly and during the Masada arc in the book, and it's so awesome. It's just so cool to see them face to face, and how they talk to each other and what they say to each other and how they deal with each other is just relentlessly fascinating. And where their sort of relationship goes is so cool. And I just can't wait to see how that play out, because I think that we're driving towards that.
I asked you about it a little bit, I believe, in the last episode, and that's when Bruce chimed in. Because you said something like, you're asking the right questions to me. Yeah. And then Bruce said, Nick, this isn't True Detective. But
it's truer detective.
No, I think I said in the last episode, the fact that there's now the enemy of my enemy is my friend situation brewing with the Saint and Jesse and God, I think
it's especially awesome because... Cool. So Masada is geographically, I think it's supposed to be somewhere in like the south of France. I might be mistaken. It's somewhere in there. Okay.
Yeah.
And we're kind of going to get back to that idea that the Saint is like just on foot following them. And it's hilarious because there's a point where like they do it so brilliantly. Where basically like, so hypothetically, and I don't know if I'm 100% correct, but say that the Masada arc in the book is 6 issues. Pretty standard. You spend like the first maybe 4 or so building up towards the inevitable conclusion. And I don't think any of this is a spoiler. This is just how stories are supposed to work or generally work. And you'll see the Saint at the beginning, like he's in like Texas still. And like I said, Jesse and whoever, they can jump on a plane, they can fly wherever, they can be across the world in hours, right? But the Saint can't, because he can't buy a plane ticket because he's the Saint of Killers. So you see him like look on the horizon and then you're just like, will like holster his gun and just start walking. And we got some of that in season 2 at the very beginning, which was awesome. Like that shot of him on the bridge, like literally walking across the suspension bridge. It's hilarious because that's what he does in the book. And there's a part in one of the Masada issues, and I don't think this is a spoiler for the show because I doubt they'll do it. It's not really the book because it's like 2 pages, but one of the issues starts and you see this like boat on the seas, like a kind of like a what's that show called? Deadliest Catch kind of boat.
Okay, yeah.
Across and there's like a storm, and you see this boat on the sea, and you're like, well, what's this have to do with anything? And then you see like a bunch of the crew are on the back of it, they're like dead. And then you see you cut inside the boat, and you see a bunch of them strewn everywhere, and you like see all these panels of these dead guys. You're like, what is this? And then the next page is a full panel of the saint just standing on the bow of the boat in the middle of like a thunderstorm by himself, and it says like the title of the issue, and he's just standing there like arms at his sides, like he looks like a cigar store Indian just standing there, just taking this boat towards Europe, and he's just going to cross the Atlantic in that thing, and he's going to make it through whatever storm the ocean can throw at him, and it's going to literally like come aground at like Spain or whatever, and he's going to get out and keep walking, and
he's going to fucking Jack Sparrow it onto a dock
exactly
as the boat sinks.
Exactly, and people are going to be staring at like onlookers just going to walk past him. And it's so funny, like it's this amazing combination of badass and hilarious, and the way they set up that character in the book, like that's all you need is those 2 pages, and you're like so satisfied.
He's on his way.
Like that is so awesome.
Yeah,
and that's what I need more of out of the show.
Beautiful.
I don't think it's a huge ask.
No, we'll see. We'll see how they choose to do it here.
We will. For sure.
But now that he's got Eugene with him, though, maybe Eugene will buy him a plane ticket.
That's true.
He'll
talk his way into it.
The agent.
I also want to see more of like people throwing up when they see Eugene, because that happens a lot in the books.
Yeah.
Like, he like starts talking and everyone just literally barfs. You see like characters barfing through their fingers as they try to cover their mouth because he's so repulsive.
Yep.
He's really not that bad in the show. Like he's gross in the show, but in the book he's so much more nasty looking.
Yeah. Go back up to where we were. So Mark goes on to say, moving on to the All-Father segments of the show, I agree with Nick's comments about his portrayal in the book being better than on the show. He was much more sinister in the book, and in the show he was ironically more cartoonish than in the comic. I also really liked the complete backstory of the Saint of Killers that is depicted in the books. I don't think Nick has really talked about this, but there's so much more to his backstory in the books that they haven't touched upon in the show. I'd be surprised if they ever do, assuming the show continues on for additional seasons. On the other hand, there are some storylines in the books that I've read so far that I think may be a bit too much to be shown on basic cable. For example, the story arcs about Jesus, is it Jesus or Jesus? Desad?
Jesus Desad.
Yeah, and or the story about Cassidy's journalist friend Cy and the 2 detectives Paul Bridges and John Toole.
Oh yeah, the Cy one will never make it.
Cy, no, probably not. It would be cool if they did though, like randomly.
Yeah.
Like this is one of those like 2 episode things they could do.
Yeah, right.
Same with Paul Murphy, is that his name?
Paul Bridges and John Toole.
Paul Bridges and John Toole. That's such a great
those guys.
Little bit, those guys. That's in like issue 4. It's like
it's
really
early.
It's just before Angel.
And then the cop is involved somewhere too, right?
Those are the 2 cops. They're the 2 partners.
Oh. Okay. Yeah.
Wait. Are they the 2
They're
sex detectives?
Yeah. They're the guys who.
Are you sure? I thought they were the 2 cops.
There's one. Oh, there are 2 cops.
Yeah, remember the white guy and the
white guy and the
dude.
black guy, but then the white guy's the like.
He's like super cop.
Yeah. That everyone thinks he is.
He starts off like super cop.
Yeah.
And the other guy has the worst luck in the universe.
That's
I
right.
thought that's who those 2 were.
No, but those guys are the guys who can't say it.
Yes, I know. Yeah, you're right. No, they will not. They will probably not make the show.
Because it already kind of happened too.
I'm fascinated by what's going on in front of me right now.
Yeah, and they tie into the Jesus Assad stuff. That stuff won't make it because we live in America. Well, probably not.
Yeah,
probably not. If the show was on HBO, it absolutely would.
Oh, sure.
And it would be awesome.
Yeah.
Because I love when Jesse goes on his rampage through that mansion. It's so good when he's just punching people out. Yeah, going crazy.
Yeah, definitely.
Sorry. Well, I was going to talk about the All-Father again briefly.
Yeah. No, so Mark agreed with you that the All-Father's better in the books and very cartoonish in the show.
So to back that up, when I was just rereading the Masada stuff, and this is not a book, it's just dialogue from the book, but I screenshotted it because I wanted to share it. So when Jesse arrives at Masada to meet the All-Father face-to-face, and obviously this can't be a show spoiler because he's dead. Unless there is a clone of him, in which case I apologize, but that's ridiculous. So Jesse like uses the word and makes these Masada dudes bring him to the Allfather. And the guy describes how basically Jesse used the word and made all these soldiers shoot each other to death, except for one. And this guy's like crying about how he had to watch and these people, he says he was still pumping bullets into the bodies and then blood was everywhere, and all I could hear until the gates closed was the empty gun click, click, clicking. He was still pulling the trigger. Like these guards, because he used the word and said shoot, and they're just still just pulling the trigger because you have to listen to him. And then Jesse says, so then I told this fellow to take me to the senior cocksucker in the vicinity, to the Allfather. And then the Allfather says, to his guards, lower your guns, lower your guns. He is no threat. He only thought he was. And then he says, man of God, do you know what you face? I am the Allfather. This is the Grail. The blood of the Lamb is ours to guard, to shape the world, to receive that blood, to build an apocalypse of our own design. We have done and will do anything. The earth continues turning at our whim. At the end of every day, every leader of every nation makes a telephone call. They dial a number I have given them, and when I answer, they simply say, thank you. But you began by insulting me, man of God. You demanded and threatened and sneered. So, like, that panel is so awesome. And then Jesse goes, I'm American fat boy. What's your excuse? And, like, I feel like we never got a confrontation of that magnitude. No. Like, that line about every leader of every nation calls him to say thank you because he lets them continue to exist. And it's true. It's amazing. Well, I guess it might not be true, but it sure, when you read the book, you're like, you believe it. Yeah, because the Grail is so all-reaching and everything that you totally buy into that. And it seems to be more only like Star and his Samson unit that are like the real screw-ups.
Yeah.
But it's so, when I was reading that, I was like, oh, that's so good. And the Alpha, and the way even the art is depicted, he's way more ludicrous looking in the comic. Like, he's hilarious looking.
Way bigger.
He's way bigger.
Yeah.
And way sillier. Like,
and way,
remember when he
people
arrives?
have to keep him, like...
They have to carry him.
Carry him around, yeah.
There's like a team of 4 people that carry him.
Yeah.
There's an amazing panel in the book, too, when Star is at Masada with his right-hand man, which, by the way, I think we'll see him in Season 4. He's a French guy who works at Masada, and he's basically Star's, like, right hand there. When they were waiting, he's never met the Allfather, and Star's like telling him, like, "Oh, you've never seen the Allfather?" And the guy's like, "No," and he's like, "Oh." And the Allfather's plane is coming in for a landing, and it hits the runway, and the landing gear snaps, and you just see Star just like close his eyes and go, and he says, "Every fucking time," and then the plane like skids to a halt because he's too heavy, and then the door opens and Allfather's I have that panel too. I'll just show it to Alex real quickly so you can hear his reaction, and see what he looks like. Yeah, this is him standing at the... He's humongous.
That's fantastic.
Yeah, the plane, you see it like coming in and it lands and one of the wheels just snaps off and Star just is like every fucking time.
Yeah, the comic did a good job of just making it like, you know, like they did a little bit of the puking in the show, but it's like so much worse than the comic where it's like, it's really this is like a necessity, like this has to happen. And like you're scared of this guy just because of how big he is and how powerful he is. In the comic, in the show, it's a little bit like that, but not as extreme. But
it's much more of a joke than it is any type of like actual.
Yeah, there's no fear,
respect or fear or anything like that. So and that's one of the things that didn't quite work for me is even the Alpha or Hair Star is just kind of like Hair Star acts as though you're seeing the Allfather from the comics. I think
he does
in the show.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, and that's one thing that they nail.
He makes it convincing. Yeah.
So that their relationship is intact, but kind of the representation of the Allfather is just a little bit too cartoony and over the top and not menacing enough for me to believe that Hair Star needs to be afraid of this guy. You know?
Yeah, and I guess in the book he is absolutely terrified of him in the book. He does, and he's Marseille is the name of his French. Like it's a guy who works. He's a higher up at the Grail, but he pretty much oversees Masada, I think. And I think we'll probably see him in Season 4, and I'm excited for that because he's
the new Hoover, quote unquote.
I think he will be, except he's more competent than Hoover. But I think he will be the one that steps in to fill that role. I'm glad you said that because I was thinking that when I was rereading this. But he has never met the Allfather really. He like just kind of does his thing at Masada. And Star's like, you should be, and he gives him a gun early on because so basically he's in with Star and he wants to help Star overthrow the Allfather and become the new Allfather. Yeah. Which do we leave off this season? Is Star the new Allfather?
I don't know. We didn't see like a crowning or anything like that, but they supposedly. I mean, there's
he will be.
I'm not sure. I know he just went there. He took Cassidy there and then like he wants to bring Jesse there.
Yeah, they haven't really like explained the hierarchy of the Grail too much in the show, but in the books, that's his goal, is to kind of overthrow the Allfather and become the new Allfather. Well, he explains so Marseille is on his side, and he basically hands him a gun when they have to go talk to, because the Allfather summons him, and Star's like, shit, he knows. And that's another thing too, is like the dialogue is really like, it's up there with like some of the more political natured scenes from like Game of Thrones, where like characters are talking about one thing, but they're actually talking about like three other things.
Yeah.
That's how the scene goes down. And it all seems like pleasantries, and Marseille's kind of like, when it's over, he's kind of like, oh, well, that, and Star's like, no, he knows this, he knows that, and he's like, and this is how much time we have left, and this is what we have to do. And it reveals both how Star is kind of a brilliant tactician, but also the Allfather's double that.
Yeah.
But before that meeting, he gives Marseille a gun, and he's like, keep this on you, and if he says like we're found out and he's going to take us away, he goes, shoot yourself right away.
Yeah.
Because it's going to beat the alternative of what he'll do to you. And you see it in the guy's eyes where he's like, what the? And Star's just like, those are the facts. And like, it's just so effective. You're like, oh my God.
I totally forgot that. See, you recall a lot of stuff.
Well, I just read it.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
A couple days ago. Like I said, I almost forgot. But yeah, that kind of stuff. It's awesome. So the Allfather, like he served a function in the show, and it was good, but the potential for what we could have had simultaneously, like a really, really scary villain and somebody who's also kind of hilarious.
We'll finish out Mark's email real quick. He said, that being said, overall, I think the books and the show complement each other pretty well. Both have their strengths and weaknesses. Aside from the Masada storyline that is going to be covered in Season 4 based upon the Season 3 finale, I will be very interested to see what storylines the showrunners pick and choose to depict in the future, assuming, of course, that the show does not get canceled. Looking at online comments about how the show in general over the last couple of months, it seems clear that Season 2 did not do the show any favors in terms of the fan base. Hopefully, many who quit on the show after Season 2 will come back and give Season 3 a look again, and it'll be picked up for Season 4 and beyond. Thanks again for a great season of podcasts.
Thank you, Mark.
Thank you, Mark, for the wonderful email.
And the discussion.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's unfortunately there's no indication as of yet whether or not the show will continue. It took about a month after Season 3 for the pickup to be announced, so we could hear something in the next couple weeks. But I don't know.
Like you said, I'm going to choose to have a lot of faith in AMC's relationship with Sam Catlin.
I'm hopeful. Yeah, like I AMC has never really been one to. I mean, except in some cases, namely Rubicon, which pour one out. But they don't really. If it gets into like Season 3, they're not necessarily one to be like, okay, you don't get any closure. Like, I don't think they would look at the Season 3 finale of the show and be like, you know what, that's an okay place to leave this. We're done.
In no way.
No. So I think
it's like an Empire Strikes Back level, almost like cliffhanger.
I think at the very least, I could see them come back and be like, hey, we're giving you 8 episodes. Like, if they wanted to cancel it, they'd be like, we'll give you 8 episodes, finish out your story, you're done.
Absolutely. I think so too.
And that would be a bummer, but it would be better than getting nothing after this.
Wouldn't it be funny, though, if they said they were going to do that and then they made Season 4 and it was like a smash hit because they dial it in and just crank it up to try to close it off, and then they're like, oh, we want more.
And you're like, we don't have anything else.
The thing is, like, I guess the final 6 issues of Preacher, there is a lot of build-up. You spend a lot of time kind of just characters talking and checking in with each other because they know there's an end coming. Mm-hmm. So you could pare that down quite a bit, actually. Like, Jesse spends almost the whole issue driving his pickup truck and like listening to the radio and talking about America and conversing with John Wayne, and like it's amazing. Like it's great stuff, but it doesn't need to be in the show.
Yeah,
that's the kind of stuff that can be saved for the book. So I guess the ending, because there's that ultimatum towards the end of the book where he says like in 1 week he's going to do something, and then you kind of have almost a countdown to that, and there's a lot of stuff you could trim out. So I guess I was about to say was that the finale of the book almost is a whole season anyway, but it really isn't. But there's a lot of stuff that goes down because by that point you have your main 3 characters. You also have, the Stand of Killers, if you consider him a main character. You have Hairstar. You have, there was somebody else I was thinking of that kind of has it. Kind of the Grail in general is kind of, anyway. That's neither here nor there. There's a lot of stuff that goes down in the finale of the books in the last 2-3 issues in particular.
Yeah,
and that it's quite
a big release. The last arc is just everything kind of wrapping up, but
it's true.
Taking a long time to do it.
Yeah, but it's so satisfying. It's so gratifying.
It really is.
We did get another email from Leanne who said, hello, Nick and Alex. Once again, she didn't know Lance would be joining us. Just want to say that I enjoy the podcast and your insights into the show. I haven't really been interested in reading the comics, but Nick's comments about them have piqued my curiosity.
I like all the Nick praise going on.
Yeah.
Feedback. Just kidding. Alex deserves most of the praise.
That's not true. I just really wanted to pass. I can't read, so I can't do literally any of the homework for the show.
Yes, but you can record a hell of a podcast, and you can produce and record and edit.
Well, thank you.
And present a hell of a podcast.
That's very kind of you. She goes on to say, I just really wanted to pass along an interesting note about the song played during the fight between Jesse and Jody. I recognized it as soon as it faded up on the scene. It's The Prodigal Son by the Black Angels. I thought it was very apropos without being too obvious, since it is not a song that is well known in pop culture. I'm guessing a few watchers would be familiar with it. Looking forward to your season recap. Have a great day. Thank you very much. I did see they did have it on the subtitles when you had the closed captioning.
I saw that too, yeah.
So I knew that was the song being played, but I had never heard the song before. But I think a lot of the music that they had in that finale was very religiously themed, between the choral stuff that we were talking about last week.
God, that was the best.
But also, the song, it just felt like they were coming back around to the more religious side of things after taking the voodoo detour with season 2 and 3, which I think was good. But thank you, Leanne, for writing in.
I think the last song had some lyric about souls as well. The very last song.
Yeah. So, it's cool. They kind of tied it all together with some of the music there. Jason did write in on Discord to kind of agree with Nick a little bit in the last episode. He said, I personally thought that the Nazis all showing up was just meant to show that there are tons of idiots in today's America just waiting to be activated by a Hitler type.
I like the phrase activated.
Yeah. They're sleeper cell Nazis.
They're dormant. They're dormant at the Grindr store and at Circuit Works until they are activated.
And then he said, also trying to avoid overt politics here as much as possible, but I think this season between the vampires and the Nazis really tried to show that. Which goes along with what you said last week, Nick, that's kind of what you came around to after seeing the Children of Blood and the Nazis.
I'm really glad that I bothered to even think about that a little more. I'm not praising myself. I'm genuinely happy that I
put a little more thought into it.
I decided to think a little bit more about it. If you can decide what your brain thinks, can you? We're strailing into Jaden
Midwest
Smith
philosophy.
That'll be after the Fitness Nerds podcast. There will not be a Midwest Fitness Nerds podcast.
Nope.
Not likely.
Not hosted by me, anyway.
So that would make it the ultimate. What'd you guys do today?
I thought about making a Twitch account that's me trying to play video games as I'm on my exercise bike, but I haven't. I haven't. My self-consciousness is too great for me to go through an experiment.
I would need a stabilizer for my head, because if my body was doing this and there was a TV or something, I wouldn't be able to do it. It'd be too difficult. I would need to in Sherlock Holmes, how they put that warp stabilizer on people during those scenes, and it looks so cool. That's what I would need somehow. I would need the TV mounted to my head, like a head-mounted device that is out here, because I wouldn't be able to do it.
It's rough, but anyway, that's beside the point. The whole Nazi thing, I don't know. I think we've spoken about it enough, but it's good. It's good to see that Jason had the same feeling that you did, at least, of what they were trying to do. He went on to say, I don't necessarily think I liked what they did with it or that they were that successful with it, but he thought that was where they were trying to go with it. And I can see that.
Yeah,
that makes sense.
I agree. And they did catch some flack for that, though. They got a lot of really negative feedback for including the MAGA hat.
Oh yeah. No, that hit Fox News as soon as it possibly could, and
And I read some of the comments and stuff, and I was like, man, people got really, really upset about that. Like, they took it really hard.
Yeah,
Were they burning Nikes?
Yeah, yeah, they're gonna burn all their Seth Rogen movies now that I don't know. I'm sure Fox News is like, those Hollywood elites making fun of Donald Trump again.
Hollywood elites.
Yeah. Anyway.
Yeah, I mean, I was really surprised. Did you send me that, or did I stumble across it on my own?
I think it must have been on the subreddit or something, because I think I saw it, but I don't know that we shared it with each other.
I think I actually got like a iPhone news alert about it. I think that's how I read it.
Yeah.
The last 2 weeks are a bit of a blur, but I do remember reading it and being like, oh, wow. This like made actual news.
Yeah.
Maybe that'll help boost
season 4.
Season 4, yeah.
Oh, wow. Exposure.
Because they are getting some, maybe they're going to take that to AMC and be like, see?
Yeah.
Fellow Hollywood
waves.
elites. Let's keep poking the bear.
Yeah. Yeah, so I don't know. I think at the end here, one of the things that I want to talk about, because that's most of the listener feedback that we got, and thank you everybody for showing up in force and giving us some stuff to chat about on this wrap-up episode. But overall, I think it's a very interesting season. I'm excited to kind of I want to go back and rewatch this season before season 4. Which I haven't necessarily done, which I didn't do with season 1 and season 2 necessarily, but I think the whole idea of this season, I always have thought that the theme of like the family you choose versus the family you were born into is always, it's very ripe for interesting storytelling, and I think seeing this in Preacher, I think they did a really good job with it and kind of, showing us Jesse closing out the toxicity in his family life and coming into his other family of Tulip and Cassidy, and having them kind of separated out to do that this season, I think worked really well. It gave everybody ample time to go and do their own thing rather than feel like Tulip and Cassidy are just hanging out in the apartment of season 2, I
would agree.
So I really liked that stuff about season 3, and I think overall everything worked for me a lot more than it did in season 2. And I think honestly for me, I think season 3 is my favorite season of the show. Season 1's very interesting, and it's an interesting experiment.
Yeah, it might be for me also. I was thinking the same thing recently. I was trying to like rank them, and I have to go back and rewatch season 1. I think I might like it less now because we're further along. But it was a great introduction to the world that they set up. But I think as far as like being a season of Preacher, 3 is probably the best. Yeah, like it feels like I finally feel like we are on the brink of getting to the themes of Preacher and like getting to the places where Preacher wants us to go. Yeah. Which felt far away from season 1. You know what? You're right. 2. I think you're right because of simply one fact, and it's that God was a presence in this season. Yeah. And Jesse, although he isn't so much like, we still don't have Jesse like one. Season 2 was the one actually probably with Jesse the most concerned with finding God. Yeah. But it also just worked the least because it wasn't in the way, like they were just squatting in a city the whole time.
It was a shot in the dark that they ended up like by happenstance finding the man dog. But
absolutely.
Now that Jesse, I think, will ultimately be aware that Tulip, he knows that Tulip and God have had some discussions recently, and that God does not want Jesse to find him for some reason. I think will be really spurned into...
That needed to happen.
Yeah.
That really did need to happen. That part of the show.
Which part?
God saying, tell Jesse to stop looking for me.
1,000% yes. Yeah. That was one thing that I even said in the episode after that. I was like so geeked when he finally said that. And it, like I kind of said, I don't know how much of us you are caught up on of our show, but I kind of said that in the book that happens a few times. And it starts to become kind of funny where God is talking to different characters and sometimes even the same character and be like, you tell that Jesse to stop it. Stop it now. But he can't talk to Jesse directly because he's afraid of him. And
that's
awesome.
That's the thing. Like, what's so interesting about it to me is that right now, God in the show still feels like the Almighty, the omniscient, omnipotent. Like he still feels like that ultimate. But I'm excited to start seeing him like crumble at the kind of tips of like not necessarily crumble, but like I want God to start being more the butt of the joke of the show. I think, and that sounds like a little bit to what Nick's talking to, the idea that like he's still trying to get everyone that he can to stop Jesse.
Well, yeah, and it's really interesting because he's still God. Like his power is not diminished.
Yeah.
Like he is still God, and that's what's awesome is like he's got this kind of weird chess or checkers game, I guess, going with Jesse because he doesn't want to fuck with him. Like he doesn't want to piss him off more. So he can't just like destroy every,
he's like thwarting but also placating at like the same time.
He wants to like stay away from him, but he doesn't want to destroy everything close to him because he knows that'll just make him even angrier and even more determined to find him. So he's kind of playing this game where he's kind of like telling other people to tell him to stop, and he's also trying to I think hope that he gets bored or like satisfied with something else.
Yeah.
But if there's one thing you know about Jesse Custer, it's that he's not going to stop when he's got his mind set to something. Yeah. And in the book, Jesse is probably more that way even than the show Jesse.
Way more a book. Yeah.
Pig-headed.
I think it's always it's like routinely brought up in the book. It's like, I'm going to kick his ass. When I find him, I'm going to beat him up.
Absolutely.
And it's kind of gets lost a little bit in the show.
Yeah.
Most of the book is actually like Jesse just various like ass-kicking rendezvous he has lined up. Mm-hmm. Like even in the panels that I had here with the Allfather, when he's done talking to the Allfather, he's kind of like, yeah, and I got to talk to that scar-faced idiot behind you because he goes because the tip of my boot and his ass have a date or something like that. Yeah. It's just the book is a continuing like series of ass kicking threats, and it's so funny. Yeah. There's also a great panel where Jesse's trying to get to Masada, and he leaves. Tulip's like, he tells her, he's like, hey, just chill at the hotel, and I'm gonna go do some digging, some investigation or something. And she's like, okay. And then like you have like a bunch of stuff happens in the issue, and then they talk about it's almost kind of like a Indiana Jones Last Crusade style joke, where like Star is explaining to somebody about like who's coming, that Jesse Custer's trying to find him, and he talks about like what a threat he is and like how they need to be like at full guard basically, and it's like literally the last thing in the issue. It's like this full page of Jesse at a bar. And he's got like a guy held like this, and there's all these people trying to attack him, and he's like, I just asked for directions. That's it. And there's like a whole bar of like French people trying to beat his ass, and it's just Jesse in there by himself. And he's going to walk out having kicked the ass of everyone there because he's Jesse.
He's Jesse.
And it's awesome.
Yeah. Beautiful. So the one other big question I wanted to ask you guys about season 3, how did you feel about the fact that this is a season that is essentially without Genesis?
Oh, yeah, like we spent most of the time without Genesis
until
we got him back. Yeah.
Like,
that's a good question.
Do you feel like this season benefited from the fact that Genesis was hamstrung and Jesse could not use it as a crutch? Or did you miss it? Are you looking forward to it being back? Like, what do you think about how that all played out in terms of he didn't actually have Genesis back until the last episode or two?
I think it's okay because he doesn't have Genesis for that arc of the book either. Like I said, that Genesis does not work on Grandma and Jody and TC. And both in the book and the show, it's extremely satisfying when Genesis is sort of back at full strength. In the book, it is. I hate to like continue to echo what we've been saying, but in the book, it's insanely satisfying when he has Genesis back. Mm-hmm. But in the show, it is too. It's really great in the show. But in the book, there are so many moments in Preacher, like I said, where you just want to high five somebody.
Yeah,
it almost makes you wish that comic book reading was a more like group social experience, because you just want to. It's like at when your home team scores a touchdown or something in a game, you just want to jump up and just like high five people because it's so good.
So when everything finally happens in Angel, what does Jesse do? He goes like, yeehaw.
He does say yeehaw. Yeah, it's true. Yeah. And that's exactly how you feel too in that moment. You want to do the same thing. Yeah. It's like the scene in Neverending Story when like something awesome happens and like Bastian in real life, he like jumps up and like runs around the room. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
And like celebrates, and then he like settles back into the book. Like that's what great stories and can do, even when you're by yourself.
They elicit that reaction.
Yeah, you just want to celebrate. And the Angelville arc, part of the reason the book made such an impact on me in general is because those moments happen numerous times within the first 5-10 issues. You have all these moments where you just like, you are so along for the ride with these characters right off the bat, and it's just like a release when these kind of things happen. And the show, as great as it is, it has yet to, I can't think of one moment quite yet where I wanted to just fist pump so hard. And I think that this season is the one that definitely kind of got the closest, because when Genesis kind of rolls back in, it is really exciting. Honestly, the moments that made me want to do that the most were the ones with God for some reason.
Yeah.
Because they're so good.
Sure, yeah, definitely. The finale had a lot of things that they tied him up, put a bow on him. That still didn't give you the fist bump feeling. So the comparable character of Icarius and Jesus Assad in the book, the way that what happens to Jesus Assad in the book is a lot more satisfying than what happens to Icarius, and because like in Icarius it's kind of like a clever thing. What happened to him? It's like, oh yeah, I bit her, and then she bit everyone else, and then now you're done. You know,
yeah.
It's like it was kind of like
it's very standard. Yeah, it feels like okay, I've seen this kind of thing happen in other movies.
Yeah, but what Cassidy does to Jesus Assad in the book is like unbelievable. It's just a total stance on like you're nothing like me. This is what I'm going to do to you, and like it's incredible. It's
interesting.
Really yeah.
Yeah. I forgot some of the Jesus Assad conclusions, so I'm gonna have to reread that. Yeah. That happens between Masada and Angelville. That's the arc between those two, right? I think it is. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I'll have to reread that then.
Yeah. So I don't know if there's any other topics on people's minds. I mean, we haven't really touched too much on Cassidy and kind of where he's ended up, but I have to say, I think the Icarius stuff, to me, worked so much better than the Denise stuff.
Yeah.
The Denise stuff in season 2 felt like a lot of Arrested Development for 13 episodes, you know? You're just like, he finally turned him, and then it just felt like this time bomb that ultimately got tossed aside at the end of the season. And you know, that's fine. I didn't need more Denis. I didn't need Denis with Les Enfants du Sang, but...
No. I really liked Icarius. You know, what'd you guys say? You said he was like a poor man's Tom Hiddleston or something like that.
He just felt to me like the B-list venerable British actor.
There you go.
Like, you know, and I don't mean that in any kind of bad way, because I think he's a great actor, and I think, but he's just someone who's never been on my radar before.
That's the thing. Yeah, you don't know who he is.
He's probably like a theater star in England or something like that, I assume. But he had that charisma to really sell his performance.
Oh yeah. And you know, to get Cassidy on his side for those couple episodes, I think it's good of the actor, and it's good of Joe Gilgan, how much like Joe Gilgan was like into it. You know? Like he was like,
oh definitely,
like, yeah, I want to go flying with this guy. Yeah, I'm gonna go hang out with this guy. You know, like. What, you could turn into a
make
cat?
Out in our coffins.
Yeah, like totally weird zany stuff that was going on. Yeah.
That was a really interesting thing that we haven't really talked about. How there was a same sex relationship in the show.
Yeah,
that Cassidy
would not
never.
Yeah,
in a million years, I don't think.
No, there's too much masculinity in the book.
The book is it's almost like Fight Club level of like hilarious.
Which is funny because The Tombs is Fight Club.
It kind of is, yeah. It's like undead Fight Club sort of. Yeah. It's really strange.
Yeah. But yeah, just like that. Like you would not have Cassidy book Cassidy do that.
It is funny because I think Fight Club goes down in history as one of the most like misinterpreted works like ever. Actually, it's funny how I said that. I read some list about, it was called like the top 10 most misunderstood
Yeah.
stories, or like misinterpreted, I guess is really the only way. And Fight Club is really funny how it really, a generation of dudes got all riled up by it, but for like the wrong reasons.
Yeah.
And it ended up like Preacher's kind of the same way, where it is sort of a send up of the American male ideal, like the Marlboro Man kind of attitude, but it also embraces it. And in a way, like I think if I don't know, if you were to interview Ennis and Dylan then and now, what they would say about it, because I feel like back then when they were younger and they were writing it, they probably were like, we're making a spoof.
Yeah.
But now they might look back and be like, we also kind of loved it at the same time. You know what I mean? Like that
The
style of like
American kind of thing.
that style of like lone man action story is kind of going by the wayside, and now it's almost referred to as like the old man action movie. And there, I saw this article that I saved that was called like the death of the old man action movie, and they were saying that the Equalizer 2 was basically like saying that this genre is dead with this movie, like or saying like this era, and this is a weird era that never really existed previously, but we've had like for the last 10 years sort of this like, it all kind of started with like Taken, I think, or like that kind of, and we've had a whole bunch of movies like that.
Dad movie renaissance.
Yeah, but they're but dad movies, they used to star like younger men, like they used to be like the JCVDs of the world and that kind of thing, like Seagulls, like those were dad movies, but they were guys who you could believe.
Yeah.
Like, okay, this guy's in like his mid to late 30s, he's in like the prime of fighting form of his life, like it makes sense. And now we have these old man action movies that they don't make any sense, yet we still buy into it completely. And so Preacher, in a way, the book feels kind of like both a spoof of that idea and at the same time a kind of a love letter to it.
Yeah.
And I think that's one of the things that I find so satisfying about it is like, yeah, those kind of movies and those sort of Westerns, especially, about this idea of like one stranger that can roll into town and like make a difference. It's kind of stupid, and those kind of movies are often like filled with a lot of like really gross stereotypes and tropes, but they're also kind of really satisfying, and I don't quite know why. But you can watch a movie like that or read a book like that and be like, this Superman character shouldn't exist, and it shouldn't satisfy my appetite at all. But it sometimes it's kind of like it's a very particular itch that kind of story can scratch. And Preacher often is that. When you're reading it, you're like laugh. You're like, this should not be, Jesse Custer should not be a compelling character, but he is. He's kind of in a way the flattest character in the whole book, yet you like really, really, really love him and get behind him.
Mm-hmm. He's a man of few words kind of guy. Gary Cooper, strong silent type. John Wayne, I should say. You know.
Yeah, John Wayne would poo-poo all over that.
Yeah, but yeah. What did he say? He said something. What, that High Noon, that communist piece of garbage?
Yeah. Basically, he makes fun of it.
Yeah, he does, right.
So do you feel like the show represents that as well? Like, do you feel like that has made it into the show, that love letter, that send up? Because I don't necessarily know that I found it being that much of a comment on it all, but it's kind of hard to say until you reach the end and see where it takes the characters and kind of like what it, you know, the finishing blow or the punchline, I guess. Yeah. So, but I guess to go back to what kind of got us in here, the same sex between Icarius and Cassidy, I thought worked really well. I think on the strengths of their performances, as you were saying, Lance, and just kind of, it felt like a place that Cassidy would go after learning that things would never go anywhere with Tulip. And the fact that he could kind of have this Aladdin, as we kind of joked, show up and just take him on a magical carpet ride, essentially. Yeah. It was interesting to kind of see him come to lose a little bit of that cynicism about vampires, and ultimately it comes back. Yeah. But it was a very interesting journey for Cassidy to take this season, I think.
Yeah, it was really kind of sweet too. Like you really realized how it must feel to be him, and when he found somebody who he thought he had like sort of a partner.
Yeah, he really pulls it off. Just the character, the writing really pulls off the I'm a 110-year-old vampire. I've seen a lot of shit. I've had so many friends like you. Remember when he had that conversation with Tulip?
Yep.
He's like, I've had so many Tulips and Jessies before you, and I'm going to have so many Tulips and Jessies after you. You know, he really...
It was heartbreaking.
And the drug addiction and being like, you can't even feel it anymore kind of thing. That soliloquy he had was really good. It was Yeah. So it started out as a joke, right? The same-sex thing, where it was like, it's like, oh yeah, I've seen a vampire kiss a girl before, and then he sees the vampire kiss a guy, and he's like, oh, now we're talking.
Yeah.
Like, it started out as a joke, and then just got so much more serious and developed, and yeah,
it ultimately really meant something. And it would be nice to see Cassidy really feeling the effects of like having found something that could have been like really genuine and long lasting and meaningful, and just like having it not only go away but be like a betrayal. I hope we kind of see him dealing with that a little bit in the next season, but I don't think we will. I think they're just going to be like, meh.
The thing is, it's sad to kind of see it all end up reinforcing his cynicism in a way. Like, I wish that could have lived a little bit longer to see where it took him.
I like that, though. I see what you're saying, and I think in another work with other characters, I would want to see a character learn and grow from that and heal and become better for it. But part of the reason I love Book Cassidy is because of the character's arc, and it's a serious time release arc. Like, it takes a long time, and where it winds up and the specific nature of his arc, it is one of my like top 10 favorite characters in comics. And I would never say that. If you were like, who are your top 10 favorite comic book characters, Cassidy would not even make the top 50. But unless you're talking about a very specific, like, why do you love this character, like in terms of character growth or like even just their particular journey, it's amazing. It's absolutely jaw-dropping. And I think that Cassidy's cynicism and sort of defeat as a result of being reinforced as a result of everything with Icarius, it puts him more on that path. And in that regard, I'm really into it.
And that's fair, but I guess the other thing that won't be lost is the fact that it felt like before he got taken to Masada, we were headed towards this genuine like relief from him that Tulip would continue to be a part of his life, and that he and Jesse and Tulip would link back up and continue to journey through whatever's going on together. And his like. Because we get to this point in the season where he just discards them and is like, we're done. Like, as you said, there's been so many Tulips and Jessies. But to see them come back and to have her come back for him, I think will be interesting. And I guess after this conversation, I'm a little less skeptical of Jesse wanting to go to Masada. That was something I said in the last episode of like, I don't know that I feel like Jesse would go to rescue him.
Sure.
But I think I do. I think in the end, all said and done, I think between Tulip urging him and his also friendship with Cassidy, he will. The motivation is there.
Yeah, in the book, his motivation to go to Masada to get Cassidy it's dialed up to like 1,000, because he has no idea in the book at this point that there's even a romantic interest between Cassidy and Tulip.
Yeah.
And it's incredibly one-sided. It's like Cassidy, it's 100% to zero. It's not even like she has a passing interest. It's like not in a million years if you're the last man on earth kind of thing. And Jesse has no idea. And Tulip tells Cassidy, like, you can't talk to Jesse about this because it will crush him and he will kill you, kind of thing.
Yeah.
And so it's a very like odd love triangle in that not all of the parties are in the same sort of.
Yeah.
But Cassidy is like Jesse's like end all be all best friend at this point in the books, and so he's like, yeah, I will climb to the ends of the earth to rescue Cassidy.
Yeah.
And so it's really compelling when you know that Jesse will stop at nothing to go save him.
Yeah.
That's so true in the book. It's they're best buds till the end, even when they hate each other in parts of the book. And in the show, like even you questioning that would be difficult for the show to rectify it, you know, like, oh my God, like Cassidy's in trouble. You're not going to go help him. Like they might spend one or two episodes needlessly on that, you know? And if you're going to do just 10 episodes or even 8 episodes, if they only get that, it's like, it's a waste.
I feel like we're still a season away from being at that point with Jesse and Cassidy. Like I think after this Masada arc in the show, I could see them being best of buds.
Well, the final panel of the Masada arc, the final image you see from it is so beautiful. Oh. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
Yeah. It's awesome, and I hope we get to that point.
So that means there's 5 seasons.
right.
If
Alex is right, it takes a whole season to get to that point. No, it's true. What Cassidy undergoes at Masada, I don't know if the show will reach the place the books does.
Yeah. They already talked about bringing in my favorite.
Frankie Toscani.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
yeah. So
you just got this image in my mind of Batman Begins. Thomas Wayne is Jesse Custer coming down to save Cassidy in the hole that he's in.
Oh. Beautiful.
But yeah. No, so season 4. We're all pumped, it sounds like. It needs to happen, right?
Oh yeah.
Absolutely.
It must. I mean, I thought every season prior to this I have thought was essential. Like I was like, after season 1, I was like, well, we have to have them going on the journey now. And after season 2, I was like, we have to have something better than that.
Yeah.
And after season 3, I'm like, we have to see Masada.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that I shouldn't say I think. I hope that we get. You know what? No, I don't know, because it won't be as satisfying. Cassidy's already had Masada. I was gonna say I hope we get some of those like road adventure episodes, but with just Jesse and Tulip, it won't be the same.
It won't work as well.
Yeah, although they do have some kind of one-sided issues like that, where like they're usually mostly just Jesse and Cassidy though. You know what I mean? Like kind of those filler ones, like the big Cassidy backstory issues happen. I think they're post Masada, actually. I think it's just Jesse and Cassidy.
Do you see a world where there's a 2-hour premiere that closes out the Masada arc?
For like season 5?
No.
Oh, like season 4 starts.
Like season 4 starts at the peak, and like just shit hits the wall in Masada, and then you've got 8 episodes to go, or 6 or whatever it ends up being to continue on the story.
Because too much stuff happens at Masada. Although now with the Allfather not in the picture, that does
you take him out.
That does relieve the Hair Star story essentially.
Yeah,
which is such a disappointment. The more I've talked about it, I've been like, because it's really cool watching Jesse and Tulip on their way to Masada. It's really cool watching the Saint on the way to Masada, but it's also cool seeing what's going on at Masada, because you're invested in what Hair Star's got going on.
Yeah.
You're also intrigued by Cassidy's story. There's this captive angel at Masada. It was also an interesting element, which you don't see that. You don't know what it is or even see it until a little ways in. You see it teased. Like you see characters looking into this room where it's imprisoned and being like, oh my God. And you're like, well, what is it? Like, who's there? What's there? And then when it's revealed that it's an angel who's actually chained up and you're like, oh, who can hold an angel captive? Like, that's crazy. That is one of the coolest parts of the whole Masada story.
Did I ask you that last episode?
You did, right at the end.
All right.
You were like, what is it? And I was like, and you were like, is it an angel? And I was like, yeah. And that's all we said.
All right, good.
Mm-hmm. I think it made it into the episode.
I think it did too. I should probably double check before I.
It doesn't matter. It's an angel. Like if you can't tell.
Yeah.
You'll just watch it again and you'll understand. Like, okay, because otherwise, what is it? It's not Hawkman. It's not. It's not Harvey Birdman, attorney at law.
Damn.
Sorry, it's not Stephen Colbert as Harvey Birdman. Like as the angel, it's Stephen Colbert.
Beautiful.
No, it's not. That's some of my favorite stuff. And it's a very important character, and it's a very important part of the Masada story. Mm-hmm. And I can't wait to see who they cast as that character. Sure. It actually shouldn't be anybody famous at all. No, it should be a nobody. Yeah. But it should be somebody who looks like an angel, like a divine being.
What if it's John Travolta reprising his role as an angel in Michael?
Michael.
No, I'll stop.
It sounds okay. So 2 episodes of Masada doesn't work.
I don't think so. Half a season would.
And
not the whole season.
That could maybe be it, because it sounds like, at least the way things are structured this year, I think they had like that Comic-Con panel, which was like, this is the halfway point. Here's what's coming after this.
Oh, really? Are they planning on 6 seasons?
No. But Comic-Con kind of happened in the middle of this season. Mm-hmm. And they showed a trailer at Comic-Con of like, here's the back half of season 3.
Okay.
So I could see them structuring things that way. I don't know that it was that clearly defined or delineated in this season, but it feels like there's room for them to do that with Masada next season, maybe.
Yeah, if they did half a season of Masada, one episode of In Between Masada / Cassidy backstory, because we really need that.
And then like a lead into like...
I'm trying to think what comes after Masada. I just started reading some of it. Lance is pulling up Wikipedia right now. I bet. In a non-spoiler fashion, Lance, give me a couple key words. I know I probably just read a couple of those, or I kind of was bouncing around because I read Masada and then it would remind me of another arc or like some other characters, and I kind of jumped ahead a few issues, and I was like, I want to read a little bit of this. If it goes from Masada to... There's a big battle. There's a big confrontation, like somewhere near the Grand Canyon.
Right after Masada?
Yeah.
Oh, it's Salvation, but that's kind of already happened.
That's Kincannon, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's where Jesse goes off on his own.
Yeah, but that's different in the book than it is in the show. There's a few characters. That's with the sheriff, right? That he like befriends.
Yeah.
Oh man, wait. It can't be. What? Because after there's an event that occurs that makes him go off on his own for a little bit.
Jesse?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's after Masada?
Yeah.
No.
Right?
Isn't that after the fight at the Grand Canyon?
Fight at the Grand Canyon.
There's that big confrontation because...
Oh, yeah.
That's...
Oh, okay, there we go.
That's like my favorite stuff.
Oh, I skipped. I'm sorry.
You guys are like adding to the activation energy of me just reading the comics at this point because
I scrolled too much with my finger.
Wouldn't that be a twist for our show if Alex suddenly came back and we hadn't said anything on social media and he goes, and I have finally read.
I think I'm gonna stick to it.
You
but
should.
I think at least.
Well, the Salvation arc is so cool because it's almost an entire arc that's like a bottle because Jesse. It's Jesse's kind of. He has like a one-man experience. He has this kind of solo story, and it's so awesome. It's so it's like pure, undistilled, or undiluted rather, Jesse Custer, because he doesn't have Tulip or Cassidy to like bring out these different sides of him. So you have like raw Jesse, and it's so good.
Yeah,
it's so awesome.
That's awesome.
After Masada, so yeah, like. The last panel of Masada is them hanging out.
Yeah, and then you have that. You have like 2 issues of them.
And then it says, I see les enfants du sang.
Oh, that is it. Yeah. Because I just got the tease for that. And they're very different in the book.
Oh, the voodoo stuff?
Yeah. That's what it is.
So there's voodoo
It's
stuff.
it's back. It's actually
different voodoo stuff.
Yeah, it's
way
like
different.
It's like the first time they actually go to New Orleans, I think.
The voodoo stuff. So
that's a good arc.
Yeah, the
because
voodoo stuff is like 2 different paths.
Because Masada makes you do you turn. I'm just gonna assign directions. You turn left on Cassidy and Masada, and then the voodoo stuff happens, and you turn right, and you suddenly have this really. Oh man, the book is so brilliant. I have 100% certainty they did not do this, but it feels like when you look at it, if you were to, there's a really great like 15-minute video of Christopher Nolan with a chalkboard and a piece of chalk laying out the story structure of Memento.
Yeah.
And not only what it is like on the page or on the screen, but like what it means in terms of writing and how this arc is. It is so good. And if you're a Christopher Nolan hater, I understand in a way because he kind of reached this level of fame where suddenly it's kind of in vogue to turn on them.
Yeah.
But I don't think he deserves it. But I understand the human desire to try to tear down something that's flawless like Christopher Nolan.
Yeah.
But obviously, in my opinion, he has not made a bad film. And he if there's any director working right now who's due a stinker, it's him. He's not doing it. Like Dunkirk was about to come out, and I was like, I don't know, man, this might be the one that sucks. and then the movie ended, and I was like, there was like a tear, and I was like, oh, what happened? How is he doing it? He's so good. And
the record is untarnished.
It is, yeah. Honestly, it's stupid.
Right.
He doesn't. No one deserves it. It's so good. But he's on the blackboard, and I have a special affinity for Memento. But he like lays out this
and chalkboards.
And I do love a good chalkboard. Yeah, it's true. You're right. Maybe that's why I like it so much. It's like that episode of Extras with Liam Neeson where he talks about lists.
Lists.
And how he just loves lists.
Yeah,
he's
Steven
like,
Spielberg hired me because I make lists.
Because I make lists all the time. That's how I got the role of Oscar Schindler in Schindler's List. I'm always making lists. Steven was like, I really, yeah. Have you ever seen this, Alex?
It's brilliant.
Wasn't that Life's Too Short?
No, it is Life's Too Short.
Yeah.
Oh, it is.
Yeah.
Oh, you're right. I'm sorry, it's not extras. It's Life's
I've
Too
seen
Short.
that like clip.
You've seen that clip? Oh
yeah.
God, it's so funny.
It's really good.
It's so. That's the kind of shit Liam Neeson needs to be doing. Not this Taken, Unstoppable crap or whatever his train movie was called.
Oh. Yeah.
Yeah, but anyway, if Ennis and Dylan, it feels like they sat down and wrote out the entirety of Preacher on like a blackboard before they even started writing it. It's that well done in terms of how the story makes you kind of swing back and forth and around on how you feel about certain characters and certain arcs and who has your sympathies
Especially
and who doesn't.
Cassidy.
Especially Cassidy. He is the most like zigzaggy character, and you never know how to feel about him. And in the show, that's part of the reason why I'm a little like not quite as into him in the show, because the show you're 100% in his corner, pretty much. Like,
that's not true though. You're reminding me now that there's a long span of season 2 where I'm like, wow, Cassidy's a bit of a shithead, isn't he?
And he was kind of being rude to Jesse in the beginning of season 3, right? Where he was like, "Oh yeah, you don't care about Tulip."
Coming out of season 2, because you spend so much of like. I think I spent so much on the edge of my seat with Cassidy in season 2, kind of being like, there's a shoe that's going to drop here. And it doesn't necessarily. But I feel like that could maybe be a little down the road or something. Like I did do that with Cassidy.
Okay.
Like I have
That's
been
good.
on the undulating pendulum with Cassidy.
See, I feel like I haven't, because in the book, sorry, in the show, the things he does to make you be like, oh, I don't know about Cassidy, they pale in comparison to the stuff he does in the book.
Yeah.
In the book, it's way more severe, where you're like, whoa, and then he'll do something really awesome and redemptive, and you're like, oh, he is a really good guy. But you really, like, you never know how to feel about him in the book, and it's so fun to like read along with Cassidy. I think the biggest thing about Cass it's really not the biggest thing, but I was just thinking about this though. Some of the stuff that happens to him in Masada, it reminded me that you never see him without his sunglasses in the book.
Yeah.
And it's funny because it's
when he's not wearing them.
Right. And in the show, he has never worn those particular like his signature shades.
Maybe once, right?
Maybe.
At the end
when
of
he
season
let go
1,
of Bojangles.
Where they're slightly like
What's the dog's name?
what is that dog's name?
It was like it's not Bojangles, but it's something similar.
Is it Mr. something? I don't know. This is ridiculous that
everyone's looking at him.
He's got a funny name. I don't look up anything on this show because I know Alex will do it before the thought's even out of my mouth. He's already Googling something.
Oh, I've got it here somewhere.
Sorry to divert.
No, we need to know.
Banjo, right?
Banjo.
Yes.
Yes. Yeah. But he put I think he let the dog go, and then he put the shades on.
He has these like shades.
And then it's in the promos, I think.
Yeah,
the
kind
posters.
of. But you still see, usually his eyes are visible over. He's like looking over.
So
his
yeah,
shades.
in the comic,
in the comic, he's never without.
And
his
it's
sunglasses.
horrifying to people when he does take them off.
Yeah. And it's
But
spoilers for the end for part of Cassidy and Preacher, but he he has the shades on literally the entire book, and it's amazing.
Mm-hmm.
But in the show, it obviously like someone's eyes are like kind of, it's one of the key ways you can connect and empathize with somebody is what they're doing with their eyes. And I would never want to rob Joe Gilgan of that, because what he does is so effective. His eyeball and eyebrow acting alone is ridiculous. And honestly, this guy deserves an Emmy, but he'll never see it. He'll never even see a nomination, because whoever the Emmy Academy would never.
The show is too genre to be.
It is. It's too genre, and it's too polarizing, I think. And it's not the kind of polarizing that Academy looks favorably on.
Yeah.
And or I don't mean polarizing. I mean controversial. Like there's certain topics of controversy that like really they're like ooh, but this is not it.
No.
And it is too genre. You're right. But like Joe Gilgan deserves all as much praise as the world has available.
For sure.
Everyone on the show is fantastic. Like we've talked repeatedly about how good Ruth Negga is and how good Dominic Cooper is, and especially in certain moments you'll be particularly like emotionally invested in what they're doing, or like you'll be like Dominic Cooper's finest moments are the ones that make me laugh. These little subtle things he does. I will always go back to season 1. That look on his face when I almost said Ruth Negga, but when Tulip says something outside the gas station, and he has this expression of like, and now I feel like part of that is inspired by their real life relationship. He maybe was channeling how. Do you remember this when we were talking about this in season 1? I don't remember which episode it is. I almost said issue. Which episode it is, but She's outside the car at like a gas station. She's not even in the shot.
It's the one where he's about to like beat. He goes into the toilet to use Genesis on Donnie.
Yep.
I think, right?
But she says something. He's sitting in the car and she's outside of it, and she's like yelling at him for something, and he just has this expression on his face of just like of irritation, and there aren't words that could sum it up. It's definitely like it tells you so much about their relationship without even needing to say it. And it's hilarious, though. It's so funny. And I remember Alex and I both were, this is back when we would record the show, we would watch the episodes together once in a while, and we both were like dying laughing because it was so good. But anyway, Joe Gilgan is the master of that. He can do so much with his face in so little time. And I really hope beyond Preacher, he can continue to find a lot of success in Hollywood, because the guy is ridiculously talented. I think the only thing I've seen him in prior is Lockout. Cool movie, right?
It was, right?
Yeah. That's how Alex and I saw it together, and it was a blast.
Yeah, we were the only two people at Star.
I think we were. Yeah,
very little scene, but I mean, Guy Pearce, I'm there.
Yeah,
I'm always there. Yeah, give me more Guy.
Yeah. He
is one of my favorites, and he is always interesting and always compelling. Memento.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, Lockout was fun. I think didn't Luc Besson get hit with a lawsuit from John Carpenter because he was like, this is Escape from New York, but in space with Guy Pearce. And I was like, yeah, that's why I went to see it. I see why John wants his cut, because that was kind of one thing that kind of sold me on it. Yeah, and Guy Pearce, man, what a chameleon he is. Like, I was like, Guy Pearce is like a leading man action hero, gruff, mercenary type. I was like, I don't know. And then I saw the movie and I was like, hell yeah, let's do more of that. Like, honestly, if that became a franchise, if that became like a John Wick, but like silly and in space, I'd be so into it.
Sure.
So, just to speak on this kind of the legal action here section of the Lockout Wikipedia article.
Oh, good.
The court awarded John Carpenter damages of 20,000 euros.
Awesome.
The screenwriter Nick Castle got 10,000 euros.
Perfect.
And 50,000 euros were given to Metro Goldwyn Mayer.
Perfect.
However, after Besson's appeal was rejected in July 2016, the claimant's total damages were increased to 450,000 euros.
Oh, I was gonna say, man, they got out for less than 100,000 the first time. That's a hilariously perfect amount.
Yeah.
And then it got bumped up to €500,000. That's awesome.
Yeah. Wow.
Anyway,
that's great, because I actually really like that, because that's not like millions of dollars. I'm glad it's like it's an amount that like seems like here you go, John. Like, here's something.
Yeah.
It's appropriate to that movie.
Yeah.
If we were talking something like Star Wars Episode 7 or something.
It's not like Lockout went on to be a gigantic box office hit.
Exactly. It's kind of funny.
That might be half the production budget of the movie.
You might be right, yeah. And honestly, the movie was all the better for it.
Anyway.
The Midwest Lockout Nerds podcast.
Yeah. Any final thoughts on season 3 of Preacher? Any other unfinished any things that you didn't get to say or that you'd like to say before we close the record for another season?
I think on the whole, I really enjoyed it. It might be my favorite season. I think the highs were the highest for me in terms of the series, and some of the lows, they were not the lowest.
Yeah.
But they were low enough that I was a little bummed out at missed potential. And I think for me the biggest standouts are the Allfather and Jody.
Yeah.
The Allfather being mostly the fact that he's not carrying over to the next season.
Yeah.
Like, I think I was kind of fine with it up until episode 10. And then once I realized that where they were gonna go with Masada, his absence will be felt by all comic book readers, I think.
Yeah.
Unless they have a clone, unless they have a backup Allfather.
I was going to say, what if there's an even bigger Allfather?
If the one in season 3 was like a clone that if it was an LMD that he sent out to, that would kind of be dumb. But I'm
traveling Allfather.
I might
the other Allfathers
travel size. That's why he could walk.
He is the portable Allfather. Right. Now that you're saying that, I kind of like it. I don't know. The thing is, if they do him more justice in season 4 with a clone, I'll probably accept it and be like, and really end up really liking it, because that would be comic booky. They'd be like, oh, the only reason we know how to clone Humperdew is because we cloned the Allfather once, and that was it. I don't know, but anyway, Jody was really good. I think the casting was so fantastic that I'm bummed out that they couldn't make him a little bit more like the comic book character. But I think my dissatisfaction with Jody is both in terms of how he was presented, but in terms of his relationship with Jesse, and also what he means in the overall picture of John Custer,
Yeah.
which is what John Custer means in the overall theme of Jesse, which is what the overall what Preacher is about.
Yeah.
Ultimately, like what the entire story of what Preacher is about is kind of like this matryoshka where like you've got Preacher, but then you've got Jesse, but then you've got John, and then you've got everything therein that helped influence John, which also sort of plays into what influenced Jesse. Like there's a very multi-generational story there that's kind of peppered throughout the book. And so I think that I would like to see more John Custer, and that's part of the reason that I'm a little down on some of Jody's stuff, like the lighter and everything. Like that's all really important stuff, and we'll probably get there. And I'll probably look back on season 3 and be like, oh wow, now it's better because they fixed where that stuff is going. But like I said, the John Custer that was presented to us in season 1, no.
Not your John Custer.
No, not at all.
My John Custer.
Not the not at all what the book portrayal puts forth, and not what the character of Jesse deserves. Because like that guy, I'm like, I don't see him as being up on the same pedestal that Jesse in the books puts his dad. And obviously, everyone does that with your parents when you're young.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And then Jesse had the misfortune of not being able to
learn that your parents are people.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
So his dad is like this icon to him, and in the book that really comes across. It's like he's up there with John Wayne. He is a larger than life movie star character, and that bleeds through a lot into his. That doesn't bleed through is not even right. Like that is a cornerstone into why Jesse is the way he is, and in the show that hasn't really come across quite as much, and I'm hoping that we get more of that.
Yeah.
But as far as what its implications in season 3, it only kind of slightly diminishes Jody and sort of TC and Grandma to an extent too, because Jesse's mom is introduced in the beginning of the season and then dropped like a bad habit.
Missed opportunity.
And it's a real bummer because also the relationship between her and John is really fantastic.
Yep.
And that's even less of what's in the book. That's like maybe an issue, maybe 2.
Yeah.
And then
you find out how they meet. And
you find out how they meet
Yeah.
and all that, and how deep their love was, and how meaningful their connection is, and how important their family unit was to them, like the 3 of them. I mean, them 2 and Jesse. And it also makes Jody, Grandma, and TC scarier when you see how that family interacts with the Custer family. And you see why also, because Grandma says some of this in the show where she's like, you have too much Custer in you.
Yep.
That has no meaning in the show. And in the book, that has immense meaning because you find out exactly how Grandma feels about both John Custer and her daughter and Jesse.
Yeah.
And it's a big deal. And those relationships and those dynamics run really deep in the book, and in the show they ultimately weren't really put on display. And although I really liked the stuff we had in season 3, I would have gleefully given up all the Osaka shit and all that kind of other stuff in order to focus more on what makes our protagonist tick.
Yeah.
And so that kind of stuff is stuff that non-readers aren't going to care about necessarily, but I think book readers might kind of feel that missing a little bit.
Interesting.
Very true.
Any final thoughts, Lance?
No, I think just piggybacking off of that, John Custer was in the books was very much the guy that did the right thing.
Yeah.
Even though it was it never appeared to be the wrong thing, but you wouldn't automatically say, oh, that's what you should have done, because like he does some things to people that they had it coming to them.
Yeah.
I think that's where you can explain John Custer is like, it's like he does what he needs to do.
Yeah.
And then that carries over to Jesse.
Yeah.
So getting to know more John Custer would be good in relation to Jesse.
Yeah.
Like it's, I don't know if it's worth it to talk so much about it, but like what Jesse does is kind of a John Custer thing to do at the end when he's about to leave because he sees that contract. It's like, if you kill me, then you're going to go to hell. And it's like, I can't let you, I'm not leaving this house with you breathing.
Yeah.
That's what he says. And like, that's a John Custer thing, you know?
For sure.
And so I'm glad he did that. I have a little bit of issue with how he did it because Dominic Cooper kind of pulls it off like a psychopath a little bit. And that's total like Dominic Cooper for you, because like if you've seen Devil's Double with Dominic Cooper, he knows how to play a psychopath like really well. So like he channeled some of that in there, and I was like, no, that's not Jesse though. Like, but Jesse would not let her live, but the way he did it was kind of a little bit vicious,
a little too full of pleasure.
Yeah, exactly.
Which is sort of in line with Jesse from the book,
a little
like
bit.
The yeehaw kind of Jesse, like he would get a kick out of destroying his grandma. Although he doesn't kill her in the book necessarily, not directly.
Right.
But he didn't have to.
Batman Begins again.
Yes,
he did not have to save her either. It's true, and he definitely takes delight in her demise.
Yeah,
I will say the stuff that season 3 nailed. I should probably end on the positives or even directly talk about the positives, even though this episode is probably 2 hours long at this point.
Yeah, pretty much.
Cool. So let's just make it 10 hours long. I liked a lot of the Angelville stuff. I thought it was really good. I think that getting the Jesse Tulip relationship back on track was really strong. I think a lot of the Cassidy Icaria stuff I really loved, even though that was a huge departure from the books. I thought that was great. I think that the finale was probably my favorite episode for a lot of reasons. I don't know. There were some good ones early in the season too. I'll have to go back and rewatch all of it at some point. I say that at the end of every season. But the Saint shooting Satan in the face is like, that's up there. That's an amazing moment, and that was really, really, really well done. And it means so much more than it appears to in the show, I think, and I can't wait to kind of see some of the fallout from that. I honestly think my favorite thing about the season, though, coming away from it, is the God stuff.
Yeah.
It was done so well, and it was the right balance of like mystery and comedy and drama, and even though they are just these tiny instances across a 10-hour season, they were so impactful. Every single one mattered, and every single one meant something, and it was memorable and compelling, and it moved the story forward, and it was just good TV.
Yeah.
It was just great writing and directing and acting, and that, and I'm going to kind of lump in there with that the Tulip in Limbo stuff.
Yep.
Some of my favorite stuff. I think at the end of the day, Tulip comes away as the MVP for me in this season. She was just dynamic, and Ruth Negga is so fantastic. I'm so pleased when she was cast, or when I first saw her, I was like, I don't know. I don't know you. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know who you are. I don't know your prior work. I don't know if you're going to be any good or not, but I can't imagine anyone else now.
Yeah.
And she's tremendous. But all the God stuff, I'm so glad Mark Harlett came back. I'm glad that they just decided, because I'm sure that they cast him as the fake God, and they were like, yeah, whatever. And but the fact they're like, who do we cast as God? And I'm sure they were sitting there begging, why don't we just make it Mark Harlett again? Like laughing. And it works.
Yeah.
It's fantastic.
It's beautiful.
So that was some of my favorite stuff. I loved the kind of surreal nature of all of it too. It often involved time stopping, which obviously is kind of weird, but the instances with him showing up in the books always feel that way, where they're like
surreal,
slightly even the reality of a still printed image on a page, you can feel something is just different in the atmosphere, and that's again a testament to Steve Dillon. But there's something about the way they're presented where you it's almost like the hair on the back of your neck standing up. Like you just feel something is different is about to happen, and it's just so good. I absolutely loved that stuff in the season.
Awesome. Yeah, I don't have a whole lot else to say. I have enjoyed this season quite a bit. I feel re-energized about Preacher, whereas season 2 was a little more draining about it.
Oh, absolutely.
And so I'm glad that Gone to Texas continues to exist. I'm glad that we took the time to talk about it each week, and I look forward to a season 4. I hope it does happen. Fingers are crossed right now. So
I want another season of this way more than another season of The Alienist. I'm glad that we're getting The Alienist, don't get me wrong, but if I had to trade, absolutely in favor of Preacher.
Yeah, that's fair. Yeah.
I'm glad you said that too, that Gone to Texas continues to exist, because as I was rereading the issues, I got to the letters page and I saw the Gone to Texas at the top, and a big smile came across my face, and I was like, that makes me feel good.
That's good.
That we named the show after that small, I think it's a good reference to the books, and if if book listeners are listening to the show and never put two and two together on what that is, because I don't often read the letters pages in comics, but it's one of my favorite things about comics, and they don't really exist anymore so much. Like they kind of do in some areas, but that's, to me, that's...
I think Brian K. Vaughan still does them.
Yeah.
In Saga.
Yeah.
Because every time I read Saga, I see it at the end, and he's like, "I'm back after 6 months." Or
it's so cool.
Yeah,
it's
good
one of
checking in.
it's one of the ways in which, because comics, like I said earlier, it's a very solitary experience for the most part, and it's a way that connects you to people that you'll never meet or directly talk to. But reading other people's thoughts and knowing that they're readers as well and fans, it's so fun, and it's fun to watch the letters get answered too. They're not always done by the actual writer. Sometimes it's editors and stuff like that will answer them in like Marvel books, but when actual writers and creators answer them, and
it's kind of that prototypical Twitter of, like, Twitter kind of allows you to connect with your audience and connect with the people of the things that you're watching or listening to or reading or whatever. But that letters page is that kind of like behind the curtain little bit it's the Better Call Saul Insider podcast or like any of that type of stuff.
Yeah.
So,
and it reminds you that you're reading somebody's work, and it's fun to kind of be drawn into the world for 32 pages or 1 hour or whatever, but then also as you're exiting it to kind of have a few pages of letters to kind of catch up on the last few issues, what people were thinking, because obviously by the time you're reading them, those issues have come out, you've read them, and now people have written in, and you're reading their thoughts a few issues later. But it's kind of a fun way to end cap it, and kind of it's sort of your digestif after reading an issue. Yeah. And I think that naming our show after that, I think, was a really cool reminder of ultimately what the spirit of that is all about, is reading great stories or watching great stories and then talking to people about it and having a discussion about it and what it meant.
Absolutely.
So I'm glad you said that.
Yeah, no, I'm grateful that we're here for this season, and I'm excited to return for another should the show continue.
So for our season 2 recap, let's get right into this.
Right.
My name is Nick, and I have read all. No, all right, another time maybe.
Yeah, maybe in the off season, especially if they make us wait a little longer or something for it. We should.
I think it's pretty telling how we felt about this season by the fact that we made this episode happen.
Yeah.
Today was not a challenging day to get together and do it, but it would have been very easy to say we'll do it later and then ultimately not do it.
Yeah, it's always kind of hard because it's that first little bit of like getting out of the routine of like, oh, we're going to schedule this week, do it, sit down, get it done, edit it, all that stuff. But I'm glad that we could make good on the promise this season, unlike last season, which was just kind of a, it didn't come together in time, and then it was like, well, do I even remember season 2 now?
Yeah, it's a fever
all
dream.
That kind of, exactly. So
please join us on the platforms in which we can talk to people like
Twitter and Discord and all that stuff.
Yeah,
I
want to keep talking.
We're out there. Please come talk to us in the off season, and like Nick said, we have things that are brewing or that we're thinking about or new stuff that might pop up. So please make sure that you're following the Midwest Podcast Network on Twitter or on Facebook at Midwest or at MidPodNet, MIDPODNET, or the Midwest Podcast Network on Facebook, and find announcements about new things that we're trying to do. But yeah, I think that's about it for this season of Gone to Texas. Thank you to everybody that has listened and contributed to Patreon, and all the fantastic people that have written in and shared your thoughts with us. It's always beautiful to know that there are people out there listening. Mm-hmm. It's always it's hard to think that as I'm sitting here recording this that there's going to be somebody that is excited to see this pop up on their phone like I get excited when I see a new podcast episode. So thank you very much. I feel
like enough shows don't say that. Like, it's probably not cool to talk about the fact that you're excited that people are going to listen to you, but I know that other more famous podcast hosts are thinking the same thing. Like, ultimately, the reason you're doing this is to communicate with other people and create something for other people to also enjoy. And it's really fun when people can kind of get back to you and say,
it's a little bit of that. Like, I know that there's a reason that somebody out there is going to listen to the people that made Better Call Saul. Mm-hmm. But the fact that there are people that are listening to my thoughts about Preacher when I've never even read the comic, and Nick's thoughts about Preacher when he's a very big fan of it, even though neither of us write for a website or like do any of that crazy stuff. It's awesome that there are several hundred of you that listen every week. So thank you very much.
And that you're enjoying the show
Yeah.
as much as well. Ultimately, that's really cool to know that there are a lot of other people that are digging on
If
Preacher.
you guys didn't find worth in this, then I definitely would not find any worth in like putting in the effort to, because Nick and I could sit here and talk about this whenever the hell we want to.
By ourselves.
Yeah. And we did for many years.
That's true.
But, you know,
And
recording
Lance,
it. Yeah.
for many more years.
Yeah.
I was just talking to somebody yesterday. I was like, Lance is the ultimate person to talk to about movies. I'm like, because he sees everything.
Mm-hmm.
And he drags some meaning out of everything. Like you even said, you won't rate something less than 3 stars on Letterboxd.
No.
I mean, Lance will find worth and meaning in just about everything. Like, if you had to think of like the two, like the worst movie you've ever seen in theaters, could you even say it right away?
That's a tough one. You know what? I can. The sequel to Van Wilder. That one was a turd.
That got less than 3 on Letterboxd?
Yeah, that one is down. It's probably a 2 though.
That's a big
Still a 2.
Still a 2. It's not a 1.
Yeah.
I want to know what a 1 is.
Yeah,
on
what
the
would be
Lance
a
scale.
1?
Yeah. Oh, that's a tough one.
Haven't seen it yet.
No.
That's the thing. Like when I see the IMDb ratings, and I see 1s and I see 10s, I'm like, you're both wrong.
Mm.
There
Yeah.
are no 10s, there are no 1s.
Yeah.
In my
Yeah.
opinion. But
Yeah.
anyway, yeah, this is why Lance needs to have his own just constantly running 24-hour show talking
Yes.
about movies because he has some of the most valuable insight.
Mhm.
You came on Film Nerds once or twice, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
A couple times.
He's heavily featured on a bonus episode where he and Tim and I talk about 50 Shades of Grey.
That's right.
Yes.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
We haven't caught up with the rest of the series,
No,
unfortunately.
the remaining 2.
Yeah.
Glad the third one wasn't split up into 2 parts.
Yeah, that's good. I think there was a prediction that we talked about on the show.
That must be an amazing episode. I obviously have not listened to it.
You should probably just go listen to it without seeing the movie, because
I kind of want to
cares?
see. Well, from what I understand, the first movie I think is the one that they actually tried to make a serious movie, and then the rest of them go flying off the deep end. Where
sounds
they're,
about right.
Where they're like,
Yeah.
screw it.
Oh yeah, the first one. The first one's legit as a.
It's an adaptation.
Yeah. I mean, had great cinematography. First
Yeah,
one.
yeah.
And the second one, I think, and the third one, they probably just. It's like
From what I've understood,
put the soap opera stuff in there.
they tried to make it like as batshit crazy as they could.
Mm-hmm.
And I forgot why. There was some other podcast I listened to was talking about this, and it was really funny. They were like talking about the 50 Shades movies and how they've seen them all. I think it was. I don't know if it was Comedy Bang Bang. It was something like that.
Yeah.
But these people were talking about how they'd seen them all. No, I think it was the Canon actually. I think it was Amy Nicholson and some other co-hosts were talking about how fascinating the 50 Shades. Yeah, that's what it was, because one of the guests that was on, he was like, "Oh my god, I love them," and she was like, "Yeah, me too." And he was like, "The sequels." He's like, "They're amazing pieces of like insane genre filmmaking." Where like it's the kind of thing where Tim finds a lot of worth in like really crap movies. Like, and I don't mean that as like a disparaging remark on him, but like he'll watch like really over the top junky things and like think it's a great experience. It might not be a great movie, but he had an awesome time watching it. And that's the way they act about these 50 Shades movies. They're like, oh, they're a riot. And so that makes me intrigued to kind of watch the whole. If there was a riff tracks for all of them, I'd watch them.
Oh, yeah.
Like we did with Twilight.
I would watch riff tracks for those movies for sure.
Anyway,
You guys know where to find more of our podcast.
If you want more of that,
go check out the Midwest Film Nerds. There's a big back catalog there. Check out MidwestPodcastNetwork.com to hear about all of our other shows, and make sure you consider stopping by our Patreon and giving us just $1 a month, because $1 more a month is more than we'd currently be making. So please, that would be fantastic. But that's all for this season of Gone to Texas. We can't wait to see what next season of Preacher brings. But until then, go forth and speak the good word.